May I please have the clerk call the roll, and everyone that's in the audience that's chatting, please take a seat and stop chatting.
Vice Mayor Baxter.
She's here.
Commissioner Flores. Mayor Marino.
Here.
Commissioner Powell.
Here.
Commissioner Sachs.
Commissioner Sachs is going to be late.
Commissioner Weiss.
Here.
Commissioner Woodward. Here. Thank you.
Thank you. I've asked Commissioner Weiss to lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
I'd like to take a moment of silence in memory of the children and adults we lost yesterday in Minnesota. It's a tragic event. To pray on behalf of our first responders and those that are caring for those that were injured and for the speedy recovery. Dear God, we seek your help today with our affairs. Bless this meeting with your divine intelligence and help us to make the best use of our own. We are of diverse opinion here, yet we wish to reach agreement satisfactory for all. Please share your wisdom with us to help us do right by all concerned. Thank you for your heavenly blessing. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, do we have notice?
We do have notice.
Proof of publication?
We do have proof of publication.
Do I need a motion to receive and file?
Yes.
So moved.
I have a motion from the Vice Mayor, a second from Commissioner Woodward. All in favor? All opposed? See that motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
And show that Commissioner Flores is with us. Thank you. All righty. Oh, now to the fun part of the agenda. Any additions, deletions, and modifications?
Would you like us to swear in?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's on there too. Swearing in, please.
All those wishing to speak or testify on today's quasi-judicial items, please rise and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before
Now,
we get started on Add Delete, I apologize for the last minute flurry of papers at your desk. Everything on Add Delete that you have received via email. And we do have copies here if there's questions on any of the documentation, and we have it for the clerk. And I'll turn it over to Wendy.
Okay, for our amendments to the agenda, item number 2, ZV ABN PDD CA 2024-01273 liter self-storage. The applicant submitted a letter in the attached amendments for a postponement to September 25th BCC hearing. Also under this same heading, postponements, withdrawals, and agendas, late last night, we received a request for a remand for item number 6, ZCA 2024-01593 Nash Trail. They've requested to be remanded back to the Zoning Commission, the October Zoning Commission. On the regular agenda, there were, item number 6 had additional correspondence. That's part of the amendments to the agenda and an add delete of landscape condition number 2 for the north and south property lines. Item number 7, PDD DOA 2024-01924, Ascot 441. We have an amendment to the staff report to correct the acreage from 248.14 to 330.46 acres. D, zoning applications, item number 9, CA 2024-01606, Gardens of Pine Ridge. There's an amendment to Exhibit C for engineering condition number 3. Item 11, CAW 2024-01800, 7th at Haverhill. There is a request to modify Exhibit C1, specifically the architectural review, condition number 2 and number 3, and the addition of Palm Tran condition number 1. And lastly, items 12 and 13, LGA 2024 2, West End Crossing, MUPD, as well as item 13, PDD-CA 2023-00843, West End Crossing, the zoning application. There is an addition of emails, Acreage Landowner Association letters, ALA poll results, and ALA petition to add to both of those applications.
For the remand for Nash Trail, did we need to take that separately, or we can take it all together?
Well, you can vote on the amendment to the agenda, and then when we get to that part of the agenda, you'll do a vote on it separately.
Okay. I have a motion from Commissioner Flores, a second from Commissioner Weiss. All in favor, all opposed. See, that motion carries 6-0. Alrighty.
So for the postponement agenda, the first one is ZVABN PDD-CA 2024-01273, Leader Self-Storage. The request did postpone to September 25th.
I have a motion from it flipped. This one's from Commissioner Weiss, and the second is from Commissioner Flores. All in favor, all opposed. See, that motion carries 6-0.
Okay. And then, as I had mentioned, late last night, we got a request to remand item 2024-01593 Nash Trail back to our October Zoning Commission hearing. I'm not sure if we have any cards or not on it, but
Do we have any cards on Nash Trail? That would
Item
have
number
been
6.
6.
Nash is number 6.
Okay, we have 2 cards on.
so they would speak on the remand.
Okay.
We have Rob Palahunik and John Eubanks.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, John Eubanks, 605 North Olive Avenue. I'm here today on behalf of Robert Polahunik, Walter Ross, Michael Gordon, and Bill Sadler. We're going to be short on this aspect. Obviously, we're not going forward today, but as many of you may or don't know, that we filed a lawsuit yesterday that is actually asking for a temporary injunctive relief based upon violations of the Sunshine Law. So we have that in play, and we have this in play as well. So from our standpoint, we're not going to chime in on the remand because we don't want any of that to come into what we say today to go into that case. However, obviously, we can't stop you all from doing that, and obviously we'll work with staff or whatever you guys decide from that standpoint. So from our standpoint, we're glad we're not going forward because we have the lawsuit as well as this remand, and we'll leave it to the commissioners to make the decision on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Robert Palahunik, 5536 52nd Drive South, Lake Worth, Florida. To the extent that you remand this back, the letter I read yesterday, the applicant's asking for 200 additional days. That I'm completely taken back by on why extra time would be needed. We've asked for this to happen many, many times, and it's just been delayed and delayed, not due to us, due to the applicant. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you. So I need a motion to remand. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Flores has the first. The Vice Mayor has the second. All in favor, all opposed. See, that motion carries 6-0. Okay, so now we are on actually to the adoption of the agenda, correct?
Now you're on the consent agenda. You already voted on the adoption. That adoption of the agenda was Flores and Weiss.
Okay, thank you. Anybody want to pull anything from consent? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? I'm sorry?
Disclosures.
Correct. All right, let's go for disclosures on the consent agenda.
I'm sorry, Mayor, was there a motion to approve?
We're going to do the disclosures and then we'll do the motion.
Disclosures.
Yeah, she just said it. Yeah.
That's all right. There's a lot going on today. Okay, Commissioner Powell, why don't we start with you on disclosures?
I have no disclosures on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss?
Yes, on item number 1, I had verbal, my staff spoke with Lauren McClellan.
Vice Mayor?
No disclosures for consent.
I have no disclosures also.
No disclosures.
Commissioner Woodward has none. Commissioner Flores? Just on consent.
No disclosures.
Thank you. Since we went through our disclosures for consent, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion from the Vice Mayor, a second from Commissioner Woodward. All in favor, all opposed, see that motion carries 6-0 on the consent agenda. We are now on to the regular agenda. And we will start with item 4, zoning regulations for solar panels. This is a follow-up. There is no motion. This is just follow-up for board direction.
Yes, this is follow-up for board direction that we had in January and February. The staff recommendation is not to move forward with any changes at this time to the OLDC. We did coordinate with FPL, and I believe that they're here to speak if there's any questions directly for them.
And Vice Mayor Baxter's light is on, so I will let her go with this.
It was prior to us taking 4. We can take this if you'd like, but I wanted to ask, I would like to make a motion to move 12 and 13 up so our residents don't have to sit here all day waiting to be heard.
I'm sorry.
And my time's up.
Actually, I don't think, I don't think,
It's on regular.
no, I know. I don't think most of what's going to happen before that takes very long. So if there's anyone for an appetite to move this forward, please let me know. Okay. We have a motion and a second to move.
Are we going to deal with number 4?
We're going to deal with number 4, and after number 4, we'll take 12 and 13.
I'm sorry, Mayor, could I have the second, please, for the motion to reorder?
Commissioner Powell.
The Vice Mayor wanted to move, and its second was Commissioner Powell. And then we're going to take item number 4, and then after we take item number 4, we'll move that item to the front. Okay? All right, so item number 4 is the solar panels. I know we have representatives from FP&L. Does anybody want a presentation?
No.
No? Everybody read the documentation? We're good. Thank you, folks from FP&L, for being here. Okay, so now we have made a motion to move item 12 and 13 to the front, and we're going to take those at this time.
So item 12 and 13 go together, and typically we do the applicant presentation together as one, the staff presentation together back to back, public comment all together, and a lot of times we do disclosure before you do 12 and 13, even though technically you don't need disclosures for 12.
All right, you know what we're going to do? I see Commissioner Sachs. Why don't we go ahead and take disclosures for 12 and 13. Commissioner Sachs can share them with us when she takes her seat. And this way we can go ahead and get business at hand out of hand. Or out of the way, I should say. All right. Commissioner Powell, we are on item 13 because 12 needs no disclosures. Do you have any disclosures on item number 13?
Good morning, Madam Mayor. This morning, I'll disclose that I've had verbal communication with Don Herring, Jean Ducharme, Lisa Ann Johnson, Bob Morgan, and I've had correspondence by email that is being filed with the clerk.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you, Mayor. On item number 13, I've had verbal communication with Don Herring, Jean Ducharme, Lisa Ann Johnson, Pia Scoran, Bob Morgan, Brian Seymour, Derek Brock, and my office has received emails, and those have been filed with the clerk.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, Madam Mayor, for item number 13, we've had written communications which had been filed with the clerk. We've had verbal communications with Jamaica Gibson, K-Ram Ark, Brian Seymour, Don Herring, Sharon Merchant, Jennifer Morton, Colby Brock, Derek Brock, Jean Ducharme, Donna Cesaro, Lisa Johnson, and Pia Scoran. And yes, I have had a site visit.
Thank you. For myself, I've filed the written correspondence with the clerk. I've had verbal communication with Don Herring, Jean Ducharme, Robert Dizelle, Derek Brock, Colby Brock, Brian Seymour, Sharon Merchant, Lisa Johnson, Delia Laukin, and yes, I have visited the site. Thank you. Commissioner Woodward.
Okay, I have had verbal communication with Don Herring, Jean Ducharme, Colby Brock, Derek Brock, Brian Seymour, Sharon Merchant, Bob Morgan, Lisa Johnson, Pia Scoran, and email correspondence filed with the clerk.
Thank you. Commissioner Sachs, let the record show that Commissioner Sachs has joined us. And are you ready for disclosures?
I am.
Item number 13.
Item number 13, I have had email communications that have been filed and letters filed with the clerk, and a phone call with Bob Morgan and Jamaica Gibson.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores.
So I've had written communications with Don Hearing, Jeannie Ducharme, Brian Seymour, and Adam Kerr. We've also received multiple emails from the Acreage Landowner Association. Those have been filed. Verbal communications with Don Hearing, Jeannie, Brian Seymour, and Adam Kerr.
Thank you. I think that should cover disclosures.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I do know and remember in the past I did have communication with the Brocks as well as Brian Seymour on that particular item.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Go right ahead and let's get started.
Okay, we'll start off with the applicant presentation.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. For the record, Donaldson Hearing here today on behalf of Westlake Crossing LLC. We have a number of folks with us. Westlake Crossing LLC is an entity that is owned by the Brock organization, the Brock family. It's a multi-generational family that's known for developing in excellence. Many of you are probably familiar with some of their projects, all which contain, similar elements that we're proposing today: Abacoa Plaza, Alton Town Center, Donald Ross Village, all projects that are some of the county's finest commercial developments. And I think that that's very important because this is not a speculative real estate deal. This is a project being built by a family that's been in Palm Beach County for well over 100 years. Also with us today is Mr. Chris Hagan with the firm of Kimley Horn. There are traffic engineers. They would be available to answer any questions that you may have. I know that we provided the commission with some correspondence by Mr. Adam Kerr from Kimley Horn, but they will be here. And with us is also Mr. Brian Seymour, with the Gunster Law Firm, who will be addressing us during various parts of the presentation today. So the requests that are before you are for a future land use amendment to commercial low. This was before you back in January when it came before you, and you moved this item to transmittal. You gave us some strict instructions to make some changes. We believe that we've done that, and I will review that as a part of our presentation to do today. We do also have a corresponding rezoning to be consistent with the land use, which is for a multiple use plan development, and then a conditional use type A for a gasoline service station with convenience store. The site, as we propose it, is for a gasoline service station with convenience store. It's about just under 5,000 square feet in size. It will contain 6 pumps, just 6 pumps, 12 fueling positions. That's a substantial reduction from where we started, 25% reduction where we started with 8 pumps. And then we've incorporated medical office and retail use, just a little over 10,000 square feet, which is community serving. So it's important to note that the project that we're presenting to you today is intended to be a neighborhood serving development that's well balanced and intended to be compatible with the surrounding areas, and we'll show you that. I don't think that there's a person in this room that could deny that this site is warranted to be a commercial site, and we propose the appropriate commercial low land use for the property. Our floor area ratio is a 0.06. So it's well below the allowable maximum of 0.10, and we think it has been exceptionally well designed in context to the site. The site itself is located at the hard corner of Seminole, Pratt Whitney, and North Lake Boulevard. It's at the southwest corner of that intersection. I'll go over that in a little larger detail with some coming slides, but it's very important to note that these are two of the county's most significant north-south and east-west arterials. These are major roadways. These are just not small roads, and the configuration and the plan for these roads has changed significantly over the past 30 years. What was envisioned 30 years ago or even 20 years ago is significantly different to what the county is constructing today, which are 6-lane facilities for each of these two roadway corridors. The staff report contains a number of discussions dealing with the acreage neighborhood plan, or the ANP as we often refer to it in short, as well as the Western Communities plans. These are studies that have been out there for many, many years. These are studies. The acreage neighborhood plan was originally done in 1995. That's over 30 years ago. The Western Corridor study in 1998, 27 years ago. These are old studies. And while there have been some minor updates, significant changes all around the site and within the area have occurred and have not been addressed within these reports. In 1995, North Lake Boulevard and Seminole Pratt were dirt roads, far different. In 2008, when there was a minor update to the acreage neighborhood plan, which was actually intended to incorporate a provision for gasoline fueling stations, these were 2-lane roads and not identified on your comprehensive plan to be the 6-lane corridors that they are today. So there's been some significant changes. And when you evaluate land use changes and zoning, one of the criteria that you need to consider are what changed. Are there changes that have occurred within the landscape that would warrant those changes? So the photograph that we have on the slide right now shows our site, and I'll walk around and show you some of the developments which most of you are aware of. But before I do that, you notice with the red star that designates our 6-acre site, it's really located, it's not located in the heart of the acreage. We're not looking at doing our community neighborhood commercial development in the middle of the acreage. It's on the edge, it's on the northern edge, and it's on the corner of those two major arterials that we referred to. But when we look at this, what's occurred over time, at the time that both those reports were issued, Avenir wasn't even a thought. I mean, this was the Vavris property. It wasn't even a thought. About 5,000 homes in Avenir. GL Homes wasn't a thought. I mean, that wasn't even out there. Westlake was not approved. It wasn't even a thought. It was Calvary Judge Groves back in the day. Arden was not there. The Alt Artistry Project and the annexations that have recently occurred by the Village of Wellington were not in play. So there have been significant changes. Now, it's important to note in the visual that you were looking at, the acreage, which is considered a census-designated place, is generally considered an area of 40 square miles. 70,000 acres. So it is a big land area. And we're looking at trying to provide a small amount of commercial, neighborhood commercial, at an appropriate location, a neighborhood commercial node, which is well under the prescribed commercial land area that was once considered or thought to be appropriate for this area, even before it has expanded to this date. The slide on the screen now just documents in 1995, these were dirt roads for North Lake Boulevard. This was that picture in the frame. You can see Mecca Farms, which was actually a farm at the time. Nothing was there with Avenir. Population back in 1995 was less than 20,000 people. There's been significant change over time. When we look at 2010, population now has increased it to less than 30,000 people. Of course, Avenir was still not even a thought. There's been just, at that time, both North Lake and Seminole Pratt Whitney were paved, but they were 2-lane roads. Now it's a 6-lane road today. When we look at it today, now you can see Avenir, and if I had a current aerial photograph, you would see thousands of rooftops in the Avenir development. But it's important to note that what we propose at this location is not intended to serve Avenir. It's not intended to serve Ibis. It's not intended to serve Westlake. It's not intended to serve Arden. It's a neighborhood center that has been carefully designed and balances the land uses within the area. And then here's a comparison of the two. So significant changes, populations from less than 20,000 to well over 40 to 50,000 in 2025, and certainly projected probably to be in close to 65 to 70,000 by the time we get to the end of this decade. So here's our site development plan in context to the surrounding area. And so you can see on this slide that to the immediate east of our site, there is actually a Palm Beach County water management tract that has been constructed. It's actually constructed today, so we have no neighbors to the east. You'll see both Seminole Pratt Whitney and North Lake Boulevard in the configuration that they're being constructed to today. 6-lane facilities, but really 8 lanes at the expanded intersections. This is a very, very significant intersection with, well over 40,000 cars on the roadway every single day. So we think that we've done this very, very tastefully. It's been well designed. There we go. There's the retention area from the county. The areas that you see to the north and to the east, these are large vehicle storage areas. I mean, no landscaping, no buffering, and both agricultural equipment, landscape vehicles. So what we're proposing, we believe, is very much so compatible. I think recently you might have seen some email communications or some social media posts concerning the fact that there is a daycare, a Planet Kids, which is about 700 feet from our boundary. And there was an assertion that this proposed gasoline fueling station is going to have a detrimental or deleterious effect on this particular daycare facility. I can assure you that it won't. There are many, many daycares in Palm Beach County, and that's emphasis added, including the one at Orange Avenue that was just constructed within close proximity of gasoline fueling stations and convenience stores. In fact, we're representing Planet Kids right now in the northern part of the county, where we're proposing a daycare within probably 300 feet of an existing gas station and daycare. So there's absolutely no evidence that there was any risk to schools or daycares as a result of gasoline fueling stations and convenience stores. This is a very, very important map. This is the land use of the surrounding area. And all the magenta colors that you see to the north and the different colors to the east and west Palm Beach are outside Palm Beach County. So the important piece here, and it's something that you've heard about, and it's actually referenced in most of those studies that you've read, is everything you see in that pale yellow, it's all one single land use. There are 40 square miles, some 60 to 70,000 acres of land, largely in the same land use. The services are not balanced. That's meaning that somebody, to get a service, has to drive to the east or drive to the south. They have to impact somebody else, more vehicle miles traveled, in order to get those services. The two areas in yellow are two existing commercial nodes. One is about 3.3 miles to the east, and that's one that's now being constructed. And then there is the commercial node at Orange Avenue and Seminole Pratt Whitney, about 2.4 miles or so to the south. And we're proposing a small neighborhood commercial node, less than 5 acres of size at that location. We're proposing about 15,000 square feet, 0.068 FAR below the allowable. You have read and you will hear that, the site is supposed to be 10 acres in size per the acreage neighborhood plan, which again, we would assert is well outdated and has not been evaluated. We don't believe that 10 acres, which would produce about 43,000 square feet of commercial, would be appropriate at this location. That's going to be more of a regional attractor. We're not trying to bring people from outside into this area. This is a neighborhood center, and it's amply sized, a typical size for most gas stations that you've seen over the years. The Wawas and the racetracks, which are the supersized stations, are about 2 acres or 2.5 acres. Our site is 6 acres in size and been very carefully planned so that it is well balanced and compatible with the surrounding area that's there. So that land use is important because there's an imbalance in the land use as it exists today. This was our site development plan that was brought before you at the time of transmittal in January of this year. We've made significant changes. Right prior to that transmittal hearing, we had reduced the number of fueling positions from 16 or 8 pumps down to the 6 pumps or 12 positions that we proposed, which was a 25% reduction. But in addition, we've came back and we eliminated a car wash. And even at one point in time, that car wash was against the southern boundary. Well, those were feedback. You asked us to reduce the density and intensity, so we did that. We removed and relocated all of the waste refusal, the dumpsters and service areas to the front, to North Lake Boulevard, away from any of our residential areas. We moved all of the loading to the north side of the site. We had a fast food restaurant with a drive-through, which was removed and replaced with retail that could be community serving and could provide those restaurants and things that we heard, at least saw in some of the surveys, which would be desired uses. So we listened, we increased the buffer, we increased the height of the walls, and did a number of things to reduce the intensity to make this a suitable site. And all the loading function and circulation was moved to the front side of the site. So this is our site plan as it's proposed, and we think it works very well. I'll walk you through it. We have an access point on Seminole Pratt Whitney. It's located, where it should be pursuant to the county and the county's traffic division. We have an access point on North Lake Boulevard, which provides for both ingress and egress. We are adding a right turn lane and to providing additional public improvements for that right turn lane with Palm Beach County at that main entrance on North Lake Boulevard. On the hard corner, abutting and very close to Seminole Pratt and North Lake is where we're proposing the gasoline fueling station with a convenience store. And this convenience store is a walk-in convenience store. It's not a walk-up convenience store. In 2025, the concept of a walk-up convenience store where you'd go to a window just simply isn't in the market. Just simply wouldn't work. This provides safety, provides for ADA compliance, and is an appropriate way. And we think it's located at an appropriate location. If you're looking at the map that I just showed you, I think you could all agree that first the site is appropriate for commercial, but I think you could also all agree that it's an appropriate site for a gasoline fueling station and a convenience store, and I'll show you other reasons. But also, in addition to serving the residents here, it also serves those folks that recreate at the Corbett Wildlife Center. This is the kind of eastern entry gate from the acreage to Corbett, and our facility will provide for services and ice and the opportunity for supplies and water for those folks that would recreate in the Corbett area. The fueling station itself, and I think we mentioned this to you when we met, has been specifically designed to meet the needs of the western community and the acreage area. Our original plans had double stack pumps. Our pumps are not double stacked, they're all in a single row. And that is for a reason. Maximum maneuverability and circulation through the site, because larger vehicles, landscape trucks, contractors carrying trailers will be able to get fuel at the site. We will have diesel, we'll have everything that's there to serve the community. And the buildings have been designed to be exceptional. I'll show you the architecture shortly, and I know we've had a number of meetings with the Acreage Landowners Association, and very much so appreciate their hospitality. They've been very hospitable at all of our meetings, but they very much so complimented our architectural design and our landscape and what we're doing. I mean, the issue here is about a use. But what we're proposing was very well complicated. It's well complemented because it fits in. It is appropriate. It fits in with the flavor and the area of the acreage community. Our gasoline fueling facility will be owned and operated by corporate 7-Eleven. And that was very specifically by design. Number one, they're one of the finest operators of fueling facilities in the nation. They provide services inside their stores that meet that need of a rural community. What they provide is predictable. All of their stores are generally the same, so people know what they can find there. But more importantly, they agreed to conform to the design and character that we wanted them to do that met the goals and objectives of the acreage area. And you'll see that when you see the plans that we show. We had Wawa's wanting to come here and they won't do it. 7-Eleven does. And they have an excellent track record, not only that, in safety and environmental protection, which will show. On the east side of the site, you'll see our retail and medical office, 10,442 square feet. Very, very well designed. That retail will accommodate restaurants. We get a farm-to-table restaurants, but it's intended to be community serving uses. There could be some community serving retail, like a dry cleaner, restaurants, that could be there, but no fast food restaurants. We're not providing that. We had that, we took that off the plan. This is not being designed for somebody to drive from Avenir to get to the site or from Westlake to get to the site. It's being designed for this particular community that's here. We were asked to increase the height of our wall to 8 feet along the southern boundary, and in addition to provide a wall along our eastern boundary of 8 feet where we abut a lake. So we've done that. We agreed to do that. We have substantial landscaping, which is all native vegetation. We'll work diligently to preserve the trees and to create and establish a design and character that's consistent with the area. Our water management and our treatment train for our water will be done with excellence and will ensure all public safety is provided. In fact, the wall that we added on the east side is really, it's intended to make sure that somebody that's living on Hamlin to the east of our site, who would have to right now look across the lake at North Lake Boulevard, when they look at our particular site, that they're not seeing any commercial development, but basically a green landscaped wall and area. There'll be more noise and impact from the lake that was constructed by the county than will ever be felt by the development that we have so carefully designed and pointed out. Our landscape buffers have been greatly enhanced. We're providing a wonderful parkway along North Lake Boulevard. We're bringing the sidewalk into the site to create a dignified experience for the pedestrian. And everything's done, again, 100% native vegetation that basically not only provides for screening, but also provides for environmental benefits, water quality, wildlife improvements on the overall site. Again, the loading areas, the trash receptacles have all been moved to the north side of the site, as we had said, far away from our residential neighbors. We've even done some grass parking in the back to reduce our parking and keep our parking to minimal numbers. I've got a few cross sections that I'll quickly run through so you can see the efforts that we've made since we were before you in January. We've increased the width of our landscape buffers. This is a cross section through the southern boundary at the convenience store location. Our building is set back 94 feet from the property boundary. We've got a nice buffer. We have over a 40-foot landscape buffer in that area, and in that buffer we have an 8-foot wall with substantial landscaping. And so we think that we've addressed any issue of compatibility, and then that compatibility is further enhanced by the fact that the design criteria for the ex-urban tier requires porches and design elements, as have been incorporated into our design, that make it compatible, that make it appropriately scaled, that make it balanced within the area. Further to the east, adjacent to our retail store, our buffer gets even bigger. Our setback is 96 feet. Our buffer is over 60 feet in width. And again, we have a wall, well landscaped. You can see the native plantings here, really intended to not only be beautiful, be sustainable in the long term, but also to have environmental and wildlife benefits. There's been a lot of discussion, and understandably so, about the fact that we're proposing a fuel station at this site. Often that has an emotional response, and we understand. We appreciate that. 90% of the folks in the acreage are on wells, and so we have responded. And it's important, and I think most of this board knows that the state of Florida has some of the most rigid and strict guidelines in all of the country. They were one of the first to do it. They require inspections far more frequency than any other state in the nation. But they require, and we have provided, and 7-Eleven even further enhances, secondary containment, double wall containers, or fuel containers. Fuel containers have to have electronic sensors. And in this case, 7-Eleven remotely monitors those stations 24/7. If there's any spill, any issue, the tanks or switches are automatically cut off. We provide grease separators. Even the piping system has secondary containment within their facility. So we think that it is addressed. They have a record of excellent. It's, again, remotely monitored 24/7 by 7-Eleven corporate. Even a drop of water getting in the secondary containment would set off an alarm and would shut everything down. Their record is impeccable. And in terms of drainage, we've heard of concerns, and these are valid concerns. What if somebody is trying to put fuel in a tank, in a container at a pump, or into a four-wheel vehicle, and there's some spill of gasoline on the ground? Well, we have measures to take care of that. Oil separators that take the fuel and any oils and separate it from the water stream, and actually separate it so that there are no water that contains any contaminant that enters or leaves this site. Fuel stations. There's been a suggestion that there's 13 fuel stations that are serving the acreage, and you know what? The answer to that is correct. There are a lot of fuel stations that are located in the southern portion of the site, but there are very few in this site. There's a fuel station that's 2.4 miles to the south, which is the one at Orange, and there are 2 planned fuel stations that are 3.3 miles that aren't built yet, 3.3 miles to the east, and there's one that exists at Ibis. There's a population within 3 miles of our site of over 20,000 people. The typical average fuel station in the state of Florida serves about 3,500 to 4,000 people. In this particular case, within the radius, we will be serving a ratio far greater than that. You know, the staff had a radius of 2 miles shown in the staff report. You could see there's no overlap with this site. So we're going to be serving a very, very important need. The acreage extends 5 miles west of our site in the northern tail. So somebody 5 miles west of our site to get a convenient need, maybe during a hurricane, maybe for some other service, or to get fuel or a loaf of bread, would have to drive 8 miles to, or 7.5 miles to get to the facility on Orange, or 8 miles if they're going to stay on North Lake Boulevard. So what we're proposing significantly reduces vehicle miles traveled. I know we've talked about traffic, and there's a concern about traffic, and there should be a concern about traffic. But in this particular case, we're actually balancing the traffic. We're shortening the length of those trips. Gasoline service stations do not attract people from outside. Nobody's coming from Avenir, nobody's coming from Westlake. What they do is they take over 60% of the traffic is already on the road. So, and particularly at this location, there'll even be more capture at this location. So we believe it's appropriate. It's being proposed at a location where the county is doing significant public safety standards, improvements with the new roadways, and with the improvements that the applicant proposed, it is fully appropriate. Architecturally, and I'm close to closing, Madam Mayor, Our architecture is outstanding. It's been complimented by many, including, the acreage landowners group. I don't think that there's any objection. Beautifully well-scaled porches, designed with excellence, as you can see. That was a 7-Eleven, believe it or not. The picture that you just saw was that's a 7-Eleven. No other entity would do something that really fits into the community, and our retail and medical very much so fits into the overall flavor. So we've done a number of things to improve our overall site that you have. We've listened to you. We've engaged the community. We've eliminated the fast food restaurant with daycare. We've eliminated the car wash that's on the site. We've reduced the intensity of the fueling facility by 25% over time. We've just done so many things. We've enhanced our compatibility with our neighbors. We relocated the trash. We're in agreement with all of the staff's recommendations on lighting. We've expanded the buffers. We've increased the density of our landscaping substantially on the site. We've installed an 8-foot concrete wall. We have grass parking, and our traffic operations we've agreed to, which is really, really important, a 1,426 average daily trip cap on the land use. And that's significant, because if we propose a change, we'd have to come back to this board to have an amendment to the land use plan, and we're not proposing to do that. So just in the interest of time, Madam Mayor, we're consistent with all the criteria of your code. I'm happy to walk through this one for one, but it's in your staff report, so I won't do that. But what we're proposing makes sense and is appropriately logical. In conclusion, I won't run through all of these just in the interest of time. In conclusion, our project is appropriate. It's designed to be compatible. It balances the land use that's there. The regulatory framework that's in place of the state of Florida and Palm Beach County, and what is proposed by the applicant, ensure not only compatibility but environmental protection. And so we are confident that this project can not only meet the needs of the Western community, but is appropriate and compatible and balances the land use of the Western area. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Just would ask that we'd have the opportunity to rebut any comments. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Don. I'm looking for lights. Any questions from our board? Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Herring, you indicated that a majority of the trips, gas stations don't really bring additional trips in. You indicated that 60% of the trips to the gas station are already on the road. Where are the other 40% coming from?
Well, we're required to utilize the requirements of Palm Beach County, the traffic performance standards. I think in the document we provided you from Mr. Kerr from Kimberly Horn, he indicated that this site actually might have more capture, but we would anticipate residents driving to the convenience store that might not necessarily, from the surrounding area to get a loaf of bread, to get some milk, to get some ice because they're having a party in the evening, those types of services. And plus we do have some retail services that would attract some development.
Thank you. You indicated that you eliminated the car wash and the daycare. What would have to happen on the site plan for those items to come back or to be added back if there's a car wash?
We would not, under the trip cap that we will agree to, 1,426 trips, that would add trips. We'd have to come back and do another comprehensive land use plan amendment.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Okay, so because...
Before we go to public comment, we have two staff presentations, one from the Planning Division and one from Zoning.
Absolutely.
Good morning, Bryce Van Horn with the Planning Division, and you'll have to forgive me if some of this is repetitive. I'll try to be a little bit briefer, but again, this is a large-scale future land use amendment request known as West End Crossing, MEPD, and as presented by Mr. Herring. The subject site is at the southeast corner of North Lake Boulevard and Seminole Pratt Whitney Road. It's actually comprised of 3 residential lots. It's in the ex-urban tier, which is part of the county's growth management tier system. The site is also, again, within the acreage neighborhood plan area and within the boundaries of the Western North Lake Corridor land use study. And again, the applicant is requesting a change from the residential future land use designation of 1 unit per 2.5 acres, that's R 2.5, to commercial low future land use. And that's the highest intensity land use that you can request out here in the ex-urban tier. The applicant, again, has, of course, the concurrent zoning application, which is the next item, 13, on your agenda. The board heard this proposed land use amendment at their February 5th transmittal hearing, where you transmitted the amendment with the requirement, as proposed by staff, that both the applications be heard, both the future land use and the zoning application be heard at the same BCC hearing, which is, of course, today's public hearing, and with the direction to the applicant to address the intensity and compatibility when they came back today. So you'll, as you heard in the Mr. Herring's presentation, the zoning application changes that were made. Generally, concurrent zoning to multiple use plan development from the AR agricultural residential district, request for a gas station, 12 fueling positions, convenience store, retail, medical office, almost little over 15,000 square feet. So you saw a map that Mr. Herring showed, but again, just for some context, the larger general area, the subject site is within the unrecorded subdivision known as the acreage, generally characterized by 1.25 acre agricultural residential zone lots with RR 2.5 land use, and in the general area commonly referred to as the Central Western communities. And here you can see Avenir, Bay Hill Estates, other communities like Ancient Tree, Osprey Isles, Carlton Oaks, much further to the east within Palm Beach Gardens, which is the gray area, as well as the Ibis community further east within West Palm Beach, right on the eastern edge of the map up there. Zoomed in a little bit further, this is the 5.93 acre site, and actually the net area is a little bit smaller because the parcels actually go to the center line of the roadways. It's actually about a little over 4.3 acres. And all of the surrounding properties here have RR 2.5 designation. And as you can see here, there's a few vacant properties, heavily vegetated, and most are developed with single-family homes. Then again, the area in blue, that's county-owned. It's under construction for a drainage facility for the roadway improvements that are under construction at the intersection here for North Lake Boulevard and Seminole Pratt. And the single-family homes are directly adjacent, sharing a common border to the south on Hamlin. So we presented this at the transmittal hearing, but our staff's assessment was, first that the county is required by policy to consider recommendations in studies and neighborhood plans that were received and filed or acknowledged by the Board of County Commissioners. And as mentioned previously, subject site is within the acreage neighborhood plan, Western Corridor land use study. The A&P plan effort was completed by the Acreage Landowners Association with some assistance by county staff and was received by the board by resolution in 1996 with some minor updates, as you heard, in 2008. So as indicated in the staff report, The site does not meet the recommendations for commercial in the neighborhood plan, including recommendations regarding gas stations. And regarding the Western North Lake Corridor Land Use Study, this study was acknowledged by the BCC in 1998, leading to an interlocal agreement between the county, Palm Beach Gardens, and the city of West Palm Beach. The study's commercial demand findings were updated in 2010 and brought to the board. It was a tri-party cooperative process between the county and those two municipalities. And at the end of that, each of the local governments were to commit to considering the findings of the study during review of future land use amendments and zoning applications as well. So as indicated in the report, the amendment is inconsistent with the recommendations related to commercial, as the existing commercial approvals already exceed the commercial demand findings of the study. As presented in the report, the applicant's justification is not adequate. The amendment only meets the tier commercial location requirements. So, which is that it has frontage on two arterials or frontage on an arterial and a collector. It's North Lake and Seminole are two arterial roadways. So the applicant cites development within the mixed-use Avenir project and the city of Westlake, but those do not provide adequate justification for additional high-intensity commercial on this specific site. Staff does not believe that the amendment as proposed by the applicant is compatible, although the site may be suitable for some neighborhood commercial uses given its location. The amendment with high trip generating vehicular-based uses on this small site directly adjacent to residential is not consistent with the ex-urban tier policy to ensure development is compatible with the scale, mass, intensity of use, and character of the community. And again, just noting again that the net developable development area of the site is really only about 4.3 acres. You can see the parcel boundaries here. They go to the center line again. And as you can see, the site is again directly adjacent to and in fact sharing common property line with the residential properties to the south. One of them is vacant. So as such, staff, we're still recommending denial. We don't change our recommendation. And at the January 10th Planning Commission hearing, the Planning Commission recommended denial 8-4. The board did transmit the amendment February 5th with some direction to the applicant. There were no comments from the State Land Planning Agency review, Florida Department of Commerce. However, since transmittal, should the board adopt the amendment to commercial low, staff has added for your consideration a proposed condition to limit development under the CL future land use to 1,426 daily trips. This condition reflects the changes that the applicant made in the zoning application and are directly from the applicant's zoning traffic impact analysis. So additionally, there is a condition requiring that the applications be heard at the same hearing. Of course, that's moot if the board adopts the amendment and the zoning application today, so we would just delete that. You have the option, of course, to adopt the ordinance today and consider the proposed condition that staff has for the trips.
Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two questions, Bryce. One, actually, they're centered on the same premise. The acreage plan, acreage neighborhood plan, as well as the Western North Lake corridor study, the acreage neighborhood plan was last updated in 2008, is that correct?
Correct.
So what bearing does the acreage neighborhood plan have on the decision to move forward in terms of transmittal?
Well, the policy that's in the plan is that you consider the recommendations.
Thank you. And this would be the same question for the Western North Lake Corridor study. When it comes to the comp plan, municipalities and counties have to update the comp plans every 10 years, and then there's annual updates that we do based on whatever comes before us. Is there a necessity that the acreage neighborhood plan or the Western North Lake Corridor study be updated? Because I would just question the fact that over, from 2008 to 2025 is a lot has changed, even with us. And then from 2010 to 2025 is 15 years. So those are areas continue to change. We continue to grow and develop. I think it would be optimal if these entities who are responsible for reviewing these plans update them at least, every 5, maybe even every 10 years to make sure that when things change, they're addressing what happens. The state of Florida is changing, the county's changing, and if plans are used in a staff report or a staff decision, I think we just need to make sure they're updated. Not to say that those plans may not say some of the things that are similar to what they say now, but I think it's short-sighted to reference them after not being updated in over 15 years. 15 years ago, I was in my 20s, I think. Just saying. So that's a challenge.
Don't make us old folks feel even older.
I was in my 20s 15 years ago. Thank you. But that's a challenge. So is there something that happens, and I agree, of course, with staff in terms of the recommendation at the transmittal hearing. I just want to make sure there's a little bit more here today that makes me comfortable to be able to support the recommendation. I think the acreage neighborhood plan and the Western North Lake Corridor study impact me in a manner that is negative towards support.
Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Van Horn, for your presentation. I have a couple questions for you. So, and maybe if you want to bring up you have a slide with the site on it. Yeah, there it is. So, and my question really is in regards to, the comment was that the site is too small for commercial low, but in looking at this area where you have these two arterials coming together, the county is acquired the land to the east of them. That corner, there's no way for it to ever get to 10 acres. And is it staff's thought that it just stay vacant, or that a single-family house get built there?
No, and as part of my presentation, we did acknowledge that the site, given its the location criteria that's in the comp plan that allows a request for commercial low, that it may be suitable for some neighborhood serving uses. But what the applicant is proposing for the land use amendment is that the site is suitable and appropriate for all uses at the highest intensity, whether it's the gas station or a combination of the gas station and fast food restaurant with drive-through, which is what the traffic report for the amendment, based on our policy 35D was reviewed against, was the highest trip generating use, which is the fast food with drive-through. So we're just saying that the site is not appropriate for, suitable and appropriate for everything that the applicant has proposed.
But, so, okay, but it's not staff's position that this is not suitable for a commercial low location?
No.
Okay. And then you talked about the high-intensity use and the vehicular traffic. Because this area, I mean, it's ex-urban, any use is going to be vehicular in nature. I mean, that's the only way really to get around out there, unless you live very close by. I noticed when I looked at our map, right across the street from where the intersection at North Lake is, that street doesn't go through. You have to go up, I guess, to the road to the north, go all the way, continue to head west. So there's no, I mean, you would have a potential for connection for a pedestrian to walk across the street, or get from one of those homes, but otherwise the homes that are closest to it have to go, a vehicle has to travel all the way up and around to get back down there.
Certainly that's true for, and I don't remember what the road name is, just right. Continuing on with
it's
North,
almost if you went straight
North
through
Lake.
from North
Right,
Lake.
that road doesn't go through.
Right.
Is that the road that you're
Yeah,
referencing?
that's the one I was yes.
Yeah, it ends right there at the eastern terminus at Seminole Pratt Whitney Road. It doesn't connect at this time. So yeah.
So I mean, my thought is that virtually any use put there is gonna create vehicular. That's how they're gonna have to get there for the vast majority of people. There's just not anything really close by. Is that reasonable?
That is, although some of those uses, some of those higher intensity, what we call vehicular-based uses, the ones like the fast food with drive-through, and the gas station, which are higher intensity vehicular type activity.
Yeah. So they've dropped the request for the drive-through at this point.
They did for the zoning application. Yes.
So I see. So when you're reviewing this, you're reviewing this based on the previous plan?
We're reviewing it against the policies that are in the comprehensive plan. One of which is, does the applicant have adequate justification based on what they're proposing? And then the other one is the ex-urban tier policies that require that what they're proposing is consistent with the mass, scale, intensity, and character of the community.
I'm still a little confused though, because we're talking about it. We're talking about this with the drive-through as part of the analysis and the car wash, but neither one of them are now included.
They're not part of the zoning application, but
they're part of the planning application.
They are, as far as the applicant has proposed that the site is suitable for all uses, including the most intense.
I see. So now do we in our legislative, and maybe this is for legal, in our legislative powers, do we have the ability to limit the uses?
So if you would want to adopt a condition that says only these uses can be on this site and put that into the FLUA ordinance, yes, you could do such a thing.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. That clarifies me. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you. Just to clarify, because I just got confused with that questioning to make sure I understand correctly. On the item 12, that is what you're telling us when you look at that. You have to look at the highest, all possible, everything uses. But because we take these together, we are also looking at 13, which is what they're actually proposing. So just for my own clarification, voting on 12, well, we would have to approve 12 to get to 13. And we're doing that all together today. So are we, and when we vote on 13, if 12 passes and we vote on 13, we are voting on the specific uses, not being a drive-through restaurant or the car wash or any of the other stuff that could be possible if we stopped at 12, right?
I'll take this one.
Okay.
So when you change the comp plan and you assign, if you adopt the commercial low, all of the uses that are allowed in the zoning code are available on this site. And in the staff report, and I also have a slide in the zoning presentation, there is a new change between the transmittal hearing and today where the applicant removed a car wash, a fast food, what am I forgetting? I don't know, something else from the zoning plan. But, there's a condition of approval to limit the trips. So, but your legislative authority is strongest with the item 12. And the applicant, if item 12 and 13 are approved, they can come back in next year with a quasi-judicial application and reconfigure, get rid of the gas station, which I don't think they would, but they could ask remove maybe the retail and try to get the drive-through back or for the fast food or something, all sorts of things with under that 1,400 acre cap. Because there's no condition of approval proposed for the future land use amendment that would say, for example, only one high trip generating use, which means if they have a gas station, then they can't have a drive-through fast food. There's different techniques that could be done with item 12 to provide some assurances on the future quasi-judicial proceedings. So that's how it works. And that's why I didn't do the slide for the zoning yet. But that's so it's like it's a blessing. If you give it the CL, you're accepting that any of those uses allowed on the slide that I have are available to come back later in a quasi-judicial manner, as long as they're under the applicant and staff agreed to a 1,426 average daily trip cap. I think that's what it is, Travis. Yeah. So does that help?
Is that the only condition that's put on under the item 12?
I think that's...
Yes.
Is that the only one that we're allowed to condition?
No, you can consider adopting other conditions.
Under 12?
Sure.
Okay, I think our attorney wanted to...
Sure, and I think Lisa summarized it pretty well, but trying to, make it very succinct. If it's approved as is, they could come back for any of the other uses without needing a future land use amendment.
But are we allowed to then approve item 12 with the conditions of the uses that we're going to be approving in item 13?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You want me to do the zoning slide?
No, I see Mr. Seymour has taken
We're not going to do it anyway. That's why we agreed to the chip cap, because there's no room on the site. We couldn't do it anyway. So if you wanted to exclude the other high-intensity uses in the comp plan, Darren and I have a long legal discussion about theory of conditioning comp plans. We both love this stuff. It's very sad. But the reality, and by the way, for the record, Brian Seymour, I'm the attorney for the applicant, that if you wanted to exclude the other uses that we've excluded in the comprehensive plan approval, we would have no objection to it. So that would solve this question.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, with the condition that we're proposing for the land use amendment, the trip cap, as Lisa indicated, if there's no condition restricting any uses in the land use amendment ordinance, they could still come back through the zoning process with a use that, let's say, requires board approval, such as a fast food restaurant with drive-through, and delete some of the actual permitted uses that are that they're proposing now, like the retail and the office, and they could replace that, come back to you and ask you for a Class A conditional use with the restaurant and drive-through, just so long as it's under the trip cap.
So for
I
clarity.
feel like I'm at a tennis match.
Yeah, we try. For clarity, because Bryce is right? So for clarity, and I might not have been clear, we are agreeing on the comp plan, so that if we wanted to bring back the fast food, we'd have to have a comp plan amendment to do that. So what I just suggested as a condition, we would agree to on item 12.
Thank you. Now, Commissioner Weiss, I know you were shaking your head like you had a question. Satisfied? Okay. Commissioner Powell, your light was on. It's off now.
I think, Madam Mayor, Attorney Seymour and Mr. Van Horn clarified. We indicated that if we were to approve this today, then a quasi-judicial hearing would allow for the development order or for the site plan to be amended. However, with the condition, if we approve with the condition that's recommended by staff, then it would still require, if they wanted to do a new use or an additional use on the site plan, if that use exceeded the trip count that's capped in this particular application, then it still would have to go through a future land use amendment prior to a development order amendment or a site plan amendment in order to go back before the Bcc zoning hearing. So this would still trigger a two-step process for any changes proposed to the site plan. If we approve today, am I right, Bryce?
You are correct.
Thank you. All right.
Lisa.
Okay, to do this, since we've talked about so many things, I just want to highlight for the zoning slide, if Nancy could put the zoning slide up, all I'm going to point out is a couple things. You already know that it's a comp plan amendment and a Class A conditional use and the rezoning to MUPD. Some comments on Mr. Herring's slides, and a shout out to the staff and the Board of County Commissioners from 1989. So we did know that there was going to be 1.6 million people by today, and we had planned for the roadway capacity for Seminole, Pratt Whitney, and North Lake to be, it's a blessing and a curse, I've been here for 30 years, but we did plan for Seminole, Pratt, and North Lake to be 6 lanes each. So that we knew. They were rocking in 1989 with lots of stuff there. So it was planned as a 120-foot right-of-way for those 6 lanes. I mean, it has, it was dirt, but, our planning vision was pretty thorough. And the other, and the population as well. The 1989 plan and those roadways in the TIM was based on a 1.5 to 6 million population in 2015. And we're at about 1.56 million right now in 2025. We really did a good job. And Wendy had some comments on, so about the pumps and the berm, right?
I just want to clarify on the record, during Mr. Herring's presentation, he mentioned at least 2 times that he reduced the number of pumps from 8 to 6. I just went through the 16 submittals that the zoning division received, and there was not one application submitted with 8 pumps. They've always been 6. He hasn't reduced anything, so I just at least want to put that out there, that the gasoline station, as it was originally submitted, has always been 6 pumps with 4,800 plus square feet. And then the other thing in his graphics he presented for his landscaping includes a berm. And we had mentioned this to his staff before, that the berm is not allowed. So that graphic isn't necessarily reliable because it's showing incorrect information. And then I just want to point out as well, because he also mentioned about additional landscaping. As part of the review, he had to have 25% set aside. He worked through that with So the vegetation that's on site is the minimum vegetation that's required and not above. So,
Mr. Herring, anything you want to comment on? Cross-examination.
Yeah, absolutely. The images reflect our requirement to have our perimeter stage storage elevation, which has to occur on every single site. So it's not intended to represent a berm where if your elevation, you can't have any water flow off your site. That was the intent of what was shown there. We did have 16 pumps. Our first site plans, when we early met with staff, had 16 fueling positions. We reduced that based on our early comments with various folks. So that is not, there was not a formal site plan that was submitted where we then changed all the other changes in car washes. We had multiple car wash locations on the site which were done. And as far as the landscaping, I mean, our plan will substantially exceed code, and substantially, and that's emphasis added in terms of the landscaping. That's a commitment to us, and we're in agreement with staff's conditions. We're increased in heights of trees and staggered heights of trees are all things that we agree to. So I think that this commission has seen our body of work, and we do an excellent job with landscape.
Thank you. I see no more lights on of questions for staff. Why don't we take comment cards, and if there's questions, we'll come back. Now, as for comment cards, if you put in a card for 12 and 13, the attorney did say that I can take those cards together. So if you put a card in for 12 and 13, you will have 3 minutes to speak on both of those. Normally, when we exceed a certain amount of cards, we usually cut the time that you can speak down. So in putting the cards together, we're going to give anyone who comes up to the microphone 3 minutes to speak. There were cards that came in after the presentation started. Those cards will be reflected as non-speaking, and we'll let you know if it was in favor or opposed when we're done. And with that, Commissioner Woodward, have at it.
Thank you. We have 12 cards. I'll call it the first 6. We have 2 microphones. Madeline Marconi, Gail Ladd, Lou Colantoni, Lisa Johnson, Jessica Brooks, and Bob Morgan.
Good morning, Madeline Marconi, 8054 Marano Circle. When it comes to guiding growth in our county, the comprehensive plan includes County Direction 4, land use compatibility under Policy 1.2G, which mandates that we ensure the densities and intensities of land uses are not in conflict with those of surrounding areas. This application fails that crucial directive. Staff's report repeatedly concludes that the proposed high-intensity uses are not compatible with the surrounding uses and are proposed directly adjacent to existing residential properties. The applicant also fails to meet Article 2B, 7B, subsection H of the Unified Land Development Code by not demonstrating site-specific change conditions or circumstances. Their claims that Avenir and Westlake create a new demand for retail gas and that the 1989 comprehensive plan vision no longer applies are refuted by staff's analysis and supporting data. The applicant does not produce any data to back up their baseless claims. The acreage is already well served with gas stations, and the Western North Lake Corridor study confirms commercial approvals in the acreage already exceed projected demand. The applicant simply wishes to redevelop this land it purchased knowing it was zoned for residential with no prior development approvals, to the detriment of existing residents. Staff quickly recognized that and correctly identified that Article 2B holds approval cannot be based on financial feasibility. The application must be denied as there are no site-specific change or circumstances to justify this approval. The applicant falsely claims this site's location has become a commercial node. Had the applicant actually performed a proper evaluation of the parcel at issue, it would have discovered that the majority of parcels in this area are either residential, agricultural, or wetlands under conservation easements. Data from the property appraiser shows there are no commercial uses surrounding this site. While Avenir and Westlake are cited as growth, staff provides what the applicant couldn't: data to support its position. The data provided by staff confirms that no density increases have occurred in the acreage neighborhood planning area since 1989. Per the standards set forth in the ULDC, the applicant cannot cite unrelated large-scale developments in a completely different municipal boundary not located in the acreage to use as justification for this project. This application fails to meet Article 2B, 7B, subsection H, and contradicts multiple policies of the comp plan. And Madam Mayor, I respectfully request to submit the following evidence onto the record, Exhibits A through E. Should I give them to the clerk?
Hi, good afternoon, good morning. I'm Gail Ladd, Jupiter, Florida, and instead of just repeating what Ms. Marconi just said, I totally agree with her, and I want to say thank you to staff for all of their work, and I recommend that we do what they say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ladd. Take a microphone, somebody.
Hello, Lisa Johnson, 17856 89th Place North. Commissioners, I urge you to deny this land use amendment because it fails both the FLU Policy 2.1G and the County Comprehensive Plan, Article 2B, 7B, subsection E of the Unified Land Development Code. Within Policy 2.1G, County Direction 1 speaks to protect the unique rural, residential, equestrian, and agricultural character of the acreage. This project undermines those goals by proposing high-traffic, intense uses on a uniquely small 5-acre site that directly borders homes. Inadequate buffering raises serious concerns about noise, lighting, and traffic. Most critically, with over 90% of Western residents relying on private wells, fuel tanks at this location present a significant risk of groundwater contamination. County Direction 2 requires developments that respects local characteristics and prevents sprawl. This application does neither, and the applicant provides no site-specific need for this land use change. Their reliance on Avenir and Westlake is baseless, and their claim of a commercial node is false. Surrounding uses remain residential, agricultural, or wetlands under conservation easements. This project also fails Article 2B, 7B, subsection E of the ULDC, which requires applicants to minimize environmental impacts. The Indian Trail Improvement District engineer found the drainage plan does not meet the county requirements for a legal positive outfall. The site also sits lower than the adjacent right-of-way and will require extensive fill, endangering native slash pines, highly vulnerable to root disturbance. Because this application fails multiple county directions outlined in the comp plan and also fails to meet Article 2B, 7B, subsection E of the ULDC, this application is adverse to public interest and shall not be approved. I respectfully urge you to uphold the comprehensive plan and the ULDC and deny the request. And I'd like to say thank you to the commissioners that met with me and guided us for this. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Sir.
Good morning, Mayor, commissioners, staff. Thank you, everybody, for your help and your time today. I just first would like to say real quick.
Your name and address, please.
Bob Morgan, 13784 67th Street North. I'm the president of the Acreage Landowners Association. I just want to let you know real quick that these speeches that we have are for different areas of the comp plan and the FLU. We are not saying the same thing, and we'd really like that you would take note of these. Commissioners, I urge you to deny this application because it fails both FLU and Policy 4.1-C of the Comprehensive Plan and Article 2.B.7.B, subsection C of the Unified Land Development Code. Article 2.B.7.B, subsection C requires the project to be compatible with surrounding uses. The applicant's claim that this intersection is a commercial node is false. The comprehensive plan defines a node as a cluster of similar uses. Here, surrounding properties are overwhelmingly residential, agricultural, or wetlands under conservation easements. There are no commercial land uses surrounding this site. FLU Policy 4.1-C requires the county to consider the objectives of recognized neighborhood plans and studies when reviewing land use amendments. This application is overwhelmingly inconsistent with the ANP, which was designed to protect our community's rural residential character. The site is only 5.9 acres, far below the plan's 10-acre minimum for commercial properties. The AMP explicitly prohibits gas stations on the acreage unified planning area, yet this proposal seeks 12 fuel pumps. It also conflicts with the policy W1, which prohibits changes that may contaminate well, septic, and canal systems. With thousands of residents depending on private wells, placing underground fuel tanks here poses unacceptable risk to public health. This project also disregards the Western North Lake Corridor land use study, which concluded that the commercial approvals already exceed demand. Adding more commercial development in an area with an oversupply is irresponsible and contrary to sound planning. This application fails both FLU Policy 4.1-C and Article 2.B.7.B subsection C. This application is adverse to public interest and must be denied, please. Please consider your staff also. They know this is not acceptable for this area and our community. As we've proven, we do not want commercial at this location. It does not meet the code for the comprehensive plan and FLU. Thank you.
Mr. Morgan, real quick before you go.
Yes.
A couple questions for you. Have you ever heard me say out of my mouth that I support a gas station at this location?
No, I never heard you say that out of your mouth, but I do know that you've supported this. I mean, you have brought this forward.
Have you heard anyone tell you that I've ever said I supported a gas station here? And then
I've never heard you say it personally, no.
And why do you think I brought this forward?
I have no idea.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sir?
Lou Colantoni, 7849 Coconut Boulevard, longtime resident of the acreage. Good morning, commissioners. Zoning over the years has been a protectorant of properties and residential properties. It's been put in place to act as a protector, and you guys guard that. You dole out that protection. Okay, so based on the fact that we are going forward with commercial sprawl all around the acreage at an unbelievable rate, and there's literally millions of square feet being built all around us that is not being utilized yet, I would like to ask you to deny this application because it fundamentally fails to meet Article 2, Section 2B2A of the Palm Beach County Land Unified Development Code, consistency with the plan, and is inconsistent with FLU Policy 2.1-F, the ex-urban tier objective 1.3, and Policy 1.3-A. The applicant falsely claims that this site is suitable as a commercial node, but staff's analysis plainly states this intersection is not an established node because there are no similar land uses clustered there. In reality, the surrounding area is overwhelmingly rural residential, with many parcels already developed residentially, others vacant, and significant portions containing wetlands under conservation easements with the South Florida Water Management District. The proposed high-traffic trip-generating uses are not low-intensity commercial uses, but high-intensity uses incompatible with the adjacent residential properties. 2 homes directly abut this parcel, and approving this project would set a dangerous precedent for further commercialization, commercial sprawl in a rural residential area that has been well established for over 50 years. The comprehensive plan and tier policy require protection of semi-rural residential, equestrian, and agricultural communities by ensuring developing is compatible with the intensity of the use. The applicant's claim that commercial development has sprouted up along North Lake and Seminole Pratt are false. Property appraiser data confirms that vast majorities of parcels remain residential, vacant, or protected wetlands. And
thank you, Mr. Colantoni.
And I thank you for your time.
Jesse Brooks, 16074 Murcott Boulevard, Loxahatchee, Florida. Commissioners, I also urge you to deny this land use amendment because it violates multiple provisions of the Comprehensive Plan and the Unified Land Development Code. I've heard that already. Flu Policy 2.1F requires the applicant provides adequate justification for compatibility within the immediate vicinity, and Flu Policy 2.21B requires the protection of residential areas from the adverse impacts of incompatible non-residential uses. One of those residential uses is mine. This proposal clearly fails both standards. The uses are high trip, generating, and vehicular-based, creating intense incompatible impacts directly adjacent to homes, with more than 90% of acreage residents depending on private wells, one of mine. Underground fuel tanks pose a significant threat of groundwater contamination. The application also fails Article 2B7B subsection D of the ULDC, which requires applicants to minimize adverse impact. Buffers and placement cannot mitigate the effects, and multiple fuel pumps will have on this site that abut residential properties. The noise and pollution that will spill over to the neighboring homes does the exact opposite of this section of the code's intentions to minimize adverse impact. The applicant has failed to demonstrate a need for a gas station at this site. Article 2B is clear. Approval cannot be based on financial feasibility alone, yet their justification statement relies on the need for gas sales, while staff analysis confirms that this area is already well served with gas sales. There are multiple stations in a 2 to 5 mile radius of this site. Contrary to Article 2B7B, subsection D, this proposal creates that rather than minimizes adverse impacts. The applicant has failed to provide adequate justification, and therefore this project is deemed adverse to public interest. Please uphold the comprehensive plan, ULDC, and deny this application. And Madam Mayor, I'd like to submit a letter of opposition. For the record, I spoke to 2 of the 3 residents that live behind this property. 2 of those 2 individuals have families that they are worried about. They oppose this, and 1 has written a letter for the record. They were not unable to be here because they're working.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I be able to answer the question properly? That was questioned. I was blind. I'm sorry. I was kind of blindsided. I wasn't expecting a question, so I didn't have an answer. Can I just?
That's all right. I think Commissioner Vice Mayor Baxter is satisfied with your answer. Thank you.
Okay.
We have more
She
cards.
did say people don't want to drive 5 miles.
Yes, we have 6 more cards. Naeem John also submitted his attorney's card with him, Mark Grafton, so together.
It'll be 1 and 2.
Yeah. Patricia Curry, Hashem Khorasani, James Shackelford, Elizabeth Accomando, Carla Bauscher.
Someone take a microphone, please.
Good morning, Commissioners, Madam Mayor. James Shackelford, FS119 for the record. Commissioners, I respectfully ask you to deny the West End Crossing MUPD application as staff has recommended. This proposal directly conflicts with our county's comprehensive plan and ex-urban tier policies, specifically objectives 1.3 and policy 1.3A, which protects the tier's character and ensures compatibility. The applicant's claim of a commercial node is false. This area is predominantly homes, vacant parcels, and protected wetlands. The application provides inadequate justification for such an intense land use change next to existing residential properties. Flu Policy 2.1F requires compatibility, and Flu Policy 2.21B mandates protecting residential areas from harmful, incompatible, non-residential development, both of which are violated here. Furthermore, Flu Policy 4.1C requires consideration of neighborhood plans and studies. Currently, the site at only 5.9 acres is far below the acreage neighborhood plan's 10-acre minimum for commercial use and directly borders single-family homes with insufficient buffering. This project contradicts the A&P's prohibition on gas stations and Policy W1 threatening our community's private wells and drainage systems with groundwater contamination. The Western North Lakes Corridor Study confirms an oversupply of commercial development already exists, making the approval of this project today irresponsible planning. Finally, this proposal fails FLU Policy 2.1G's livable communities and growth management principles, threatening our rural character and setting a dangerous precedent for sprawl. We urge you to uphold our plans and to protect our communities. Health and safety, outright denying this application. And since we were allowed to also address 13 on it, additionally, this application fails to meet multiple standards outlined in Article 2B, 7B of the Unified Land Development Code. First, it fails to meet Article 2B, 7B, subsection A's consistency with the plan. This application is not consistent with FLU Policy 2.1F and FLU Policy 2.21B, which protects residential areas from incompatible uses. Approval of this plan also violates Objective 1.3 and FLU Policy 1.3A by not protecting rural communities like the acreage in an ex-urban tier. Second, the proposal fails Article 2.B7B, subsection C, compatibility with surrounding uses. This site is located in the acreage, a rural community, not a commercial node. There are no similar land uses clustered in the site's vicinity. Placing 12 fuel pumps next to homes relying on private wells poses unacceptable risks of groundwater contamination to thousands of families. Furthermore, the project fails to minimize adverse impact under Article 2B, 7B, subsection D. Its intensity with 12 pumps on a small site requiring extensive fill will send excessive noise and light directly onto adjacent homes. The ULDC states that if a request fails to meet any of these standards, it shall be deemed adverse to the public interest and should not be approved by the Commission. The application fails to meet multiple standards. Please deny the request.
Carla Bauscher, FS 119. Good morning, Commissioners. Not a public speaker, so you'll have to forgive me if my nervousness comes off the wrong way. This is very uncomfortable for me, believe it or not. As you now know, that's why I'm a writer. This report by your own staff is a dissertation on how the West End Crossing Plaza, proposed by Brock Development Corporation, laughs in the face of Palm Beach County's comprehensive plan. But Florida Statute 125.01G calls for county commissioners to, quote, enforce comprehensive plans, end quote. By the way, the reason you enforce it is for the benefit of the unincorporated areas. That is among the duties commissioners swear to faithfully perform when they take their oath of office. So, how would approving West End Crossing's comp plan amendment not be a violation of state law and your oath of office? I realize this board has done it before. This board apparently has a thing for systematically breaching the public trust to appease developers. But we, the people, will no longer stay silent while this board bends us over for developers. So I urge the board, the media, and residents to go to acreagelandowners.com and click on news for links to sources backing up everything I just said. Because spreading the word about commissioners routinely screwing their constituency on behalf of developers is the best way to admonish this behavior. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time back.
Good morning, Commissioners. Patricia Curry, 12390, 59th Street North. I also don't like to speak in public, and I haven't been here in quite a long time, but I have been here through some of the things that have destroyed our area by planting Westlake, which was calorie judge in our community, and by some of the other devastating things that the Commission has done throughout the county. And we see it happening in municipalities, and we see local residents standing up and saying, we don't want this, but yet things keep happening. I'm hoping that you will follow your staff's recommendation as well as the recommendation of the Planning Commission to deny the land use change. Then you don't have to worry about number 13. Number 12 should be denied. There's no justification, there's no need. Because of what has happened in the past, we already have over 2 million square feet of commercial approved at Westlake, plus another 400,000 at Avenir. What more do we need? He showed a map of all the residential area out there. I've been there since 1980. We don't need anything else. I can get to a gas station in 3 minutes. Please deny this. Thank you.
Hey, how's it going? Dr. Hashem Korsani, landowner and stakeholder in acreage for more than 21 years. So I really want to this plaza be approved to a few reasons. Number one, thousands of new homes built, and they are coming more, and they need a service nearby in the acreage. Area is underserved. Area is underserved of anything, medically and anything. So who's going to serve them? They're going to drive 50 miles, 5 miles, and 10 miles. So who's going to pay for the traffic? Who is going to pay for the road? All of the taxpayers. So that's the reason area and residents now drive out for the grocery, for the shopping, for dining. Morning traffic is worsened when people go for the basic things that they needed. We need it locally. And this place, I think that's a prime location for easy in, easy out. And community benefit of this, all of the community of the acreage who are not here, more than 50,000 people are there, and they can use this place for the job, for the convenience, reduce the traffic, and balance the growth. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mayor, staff. Thank you very much. Elizabeth Accomando, President of Indian Trail Improvement District. Did that gentleman that just spoke need a disclosure? Are you sure? Because he owns the property across the street? Okay. So just so everyone's aware. What I didn't hear in that the amazing presentations is the drainage issue. As you know, Indian Trail has to issue a permit, but according to our district engineer, and I'm just going to read this briefly, the engineer does not believe that the project meets Palm Beach County requirements of having a legal positive outfall. The proposed outfall is into the proposed Palm Beach Lake to the east, a project that is not completely constructed. And the district engineer believes that either the county would have to modify its Indian Trail special permit.
Hold on one second. Can everybody please turn off their cell phones? Thank you.
Thank you. They would have to modify the permit with Indian Trail to include this parcel, or the applicant will have to wait until the lake is built and turned over to Indian Trail in order to meet the Palm Beach County requirement of having the legal positive outfall. The determination, however, is the responsibility of Palm Beach County to make. The project is within the M1 drainage basin, and Indian Trail would have to accept its outfall if all Indian Trail requirements, as stated in its surface management policy, are met, which they are not at this time. The site plan does not address meeting the drainage and surface water management requirements of Indian Trail. A site plan typically does not show these details, but there are no drainage facilities depicted for the compensating storage, which this site must meet. And I will go on to read the rest. If on-site would presumably be underground water storage for drainage, these systems are very costly, and off-site storage is also possible, but also very costly. That meaning he would have to buy another lot and pipe that water onto that lot somewhere. Indian Trail has finalized its comments, but comments are not issues. Comments allowed in the DRO process that we are a part of are to proceed, and issues stop the process until resolved. Subsequently, the applicant's representative stated that at a public meeting, they could connect to an Indian Trail canal on the north side of North Lake. Please note there are no existing easements currently to make this connection allowable. Obviously, we're not going to comment on the traffic, as that is not part of it. This should be in your packet. And please consider this before you approve this, because if you approve, I understand, but if you approve this and it comes back to us and we can't approve it, so then we're the bad guys, so please don't do that to us. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Mark Grafton. I am representing Delia Lauchen and Naeem John, who live at one of the closest residential properties to the subject property at 16070 91st Street. This is a bit of a unique position for me, as I'm a land use attorney and I often represent applicants in these sorts of hearings. However, this spot of commercial in a sea of rural residential does strike me as an affront to comprehensive planning. Any one of the thoughtful concerns that were raised by your staff constitute competent, substantial evidence to support a denial of this application. You heard a little bit about Comprehensive Plan Policy 2.1G and the acreage neighborhood plan and the Western North Lake Corridor land use study. I'm not going to reiterate all of that, but there was one point that hasn't been made, is that there are processes to modify those documents, and we've heard that some of them have actually been amended and updated. The applicant did not seek to correct those plans to make it more consistent with what they're proposing now, and instead chose to bypass those neighborhood plans and go straight to this application. So that, I think, is an important point. Additionally, your staff found that notwithstanding the applicant's stated intent to have this project be compatible, staff concludes correctly that the high trip generation directly adjacent to residential cannot be found to be compatible. So respectfully, we request that you uphold the comprehensive plan and respect the community's desire and deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you. That would be the last of our cards. Commissioner Powell. Your name, please?
Delia Lauchen, and I submitted before you guys started.
So did I.
We both did.
Hold on one second, please. These are the ones you couldn't find. You didn't know. Okay, that's fine.
Delia, and what was your name, sir? I called your name. With your attorney?
Yes, and he just spoke, so.
Yes.
You're next.
Oh, well, it's fine. Okay. Mayor's discretion. Go ahead.
Would I go first or would he?
Doesn't matter.
Delia Lauchen, 16070 91st Place North. I'm opposing this proposal. I was also here when the CDNK Medical Complex, the landowner, that made a comment for, and the only person who made a comment for this actually doesn't live in the acreage. Yes, he's been a landowner there for 20 years, but he doesn't live there and doesn't understand what conveniences the resident would need because he's not a resident. So I just wanted to clarify that. This is clearly an economic and business benefit because as Gunster mentioned, they were doing this for the acreage residents, which of the 40,000, no one felt the need to be here today to support this. So I don't think it's being done for the acreage residents because anybody that I know, my neighbors, I don't know anybody for this process. It will not be community serving, in my opinion, only because we made a conscious effort, we meaning the residents of the acreage, to move somewhere based on what's already established, based on the plan that's already made, not for anything that we propose would be developed in the future. We're all going out there and making a conscious financial decision not to gain economics, like some of these commercial developers, but to have a home, peace, sanity for not only just our family, but for my 3 kids and for hopefully one day their children. So it's very important that I highlight that. It said, one second, sorry, I have a lot to say. There's significant changes outside the acreage. Okay, showed commercial node, okay. I urge you to exercise sound judgment grounded in the current law and the best interests of the taxpayers and the residents of the community. May God grant you the discernment to make the decision truly what serves the public good and to protect our homes. Some things just are not meant to be altered. There were many comments about the outdated verbiage in the comprehensive plan, but my husband and I made a conscious decision to move there based on the plan that was written when it was written. And there's a lot of documents and law in place to this day that have not been changed for hundreds and even thousands of years. So I would like you to consider that, and also everybody here's, it's stating the law, but we are all very emotional and passionate about saving our homes and our investments and everything that we work hard to protect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Naeem John, 16070 91st Place North. I want to say good morning to everybody here, first of all, and let you guys know I have a couple of nerves. I'm not a public speaker, so please excuse that. But I wanted to address a couple things I heard today. So the gentleman over here said that there was an imbalance in services in the acreage. And respectfully, my question to him would be, does he understand the definition of rural? We moved there for this environment, right? The second thing I had a question for was, he said that he felt that it was appropriate to have this commercial node made in this area. I would respectfully also ask, unless he's doing this pro bono, that has no weight for me. What he believes does not make it true or good. So when you have an issue where people have multiple sides to it, I think it's best to be pragmatic and break it down and figure out what is the best outcome for us. So if we were to break this down, number one, the current rules say this cannot happen. We are coming here today because someone has enough money to try to change the law to make this happen. I think that's a non-starter right there. Second thing, base it off of wants or needs. I have not met a resident that lives in the acreage that wants this. Based off of needs, he himself has already admitted that there's a gas station 1.5 miles away on Orange. There's also a gas station down Orange and more to be built. We also have 2 7-Elevens across the street from each other in Westlake. So, and I've never seen a line at any of these gas stations. So need is not there. We are telling you as taxpayers and voters that we don't want this. I've only heard people who stand financial gain from this say they want this. So this is totally upside down and makes no sense to me. Just looking at on face, it doesn't make sense. I would also like to say the corner of Okeechobee is a high trafficked area and it has houses on it. So there's no reason why potentially a house could not go here if someone owned the land. They just snatched it up before anyone could. I would build a house there if I had the land. There's nothing wrong or saying that you can't do it. There's 3 houses on Okeechobee and it's just as busy, if not more traveled than North Lake. I would also say, I understand that progress cannot be stopped in this area. Eventually stuff will be built. I get that, but let's do it smart. Let's congregate it together, not this outlier that they have just sitting by itself. If you ask me how that land would serve our area best, I would say put a fire station out there. Because yes, there has been growth. And how are you gonna stop a fire? The tiny little fire stations you have far away, Put something like that that could actually serve the people. And then I believe you have an interest in the people and the acreage. This does not help us.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you, Mayor. This is to staff. Can you comment on this question regarding the legal positive outfall?
That was my question. Good morning, Scott Cantor, Director of Land Development. Yes, so the Indian Trails engineer, Jay Foy, did submit a letter with stating that he personally did not believe that it met the county's policy for legal positive outfall. So in their drainage statement, they included multiple means of obtaining legal positive outfall, which is just the permanent connection to a government-maintained water body or water system. And, one of which is the lake to the east that's being constructed as part of the Seminole Pratt and North Lake roadway project. Because first, he's saying the lake is not built. So actually the lake is built. The entire project is not complete. It's a pretty long project that's anticipated to be done by the middle of next year.
Scott, could you speak up a little bit?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the lake is part of a larger roadway project that's anticipated to be done by the middle of next year or September. So, and in order for them to actually connect to that lake, the county would have to update their special permit that we have with Indian Trails because our system is discharging into their system, which is something that, we know and the applicant knows that would have to happen. I also wanted to add that in his letter, he said the project is within the M1 drainage basin and ITID would accept its outfall if all ITID requirements as stated in the surface water management policy are met. So it's one of those things where, yes, it is subject to permitting. All legal positive outfall for every project that comes before you is subject to permitting. So this is no different than any other project. And if they don't wish to go to that lake, we do have a condition, engineering condition 5 in Exhibit C1, that states that the property owner at their expense shall construct the stormwater management system from their site to a point of legal positive outfall. If they choose to go to maybe a different canal within the acreage, or possibly, a catch basin or an inlet for a county road drainage system that is not adjacent to the site. So we acknowledge what he's saying. It's just we don't really agree with it, and it's also covered by conditions of approval.
So I just want to ask you not ask you to clarify, but in summarizing what you've just said, that in the conditions, this project couldn't move forward unless they're able to obtain positive legal outfall.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Yes, at their expense.
At their expense. And if they were to have to run pipes miles away?
600 feet, maybe. It's not miles. But yeah, if they were to have to construct a stormwater system from their site to a point of legal positive outfall, they would have to do that.
Would there be anything that would stop them from being able, provided they're willing to pay the expense to make that connection? Is there anything?
No, even Mr. Foy said that ITID would accept the outfall if it was to meet all of the ITID requirements as stated in the surface water management policy. And it's the same with us. We have standards to accept roadway drainage, and if someone meets those standards, we would permit that.
Okay. All right. That's my only question right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think Commissioner Wise got to some of the questions that I had with regard to drainage. And I have the drainage statement pulled up. Just for clarification, Scott, if the site is constructed and they have to do the curbing and the piping and everything that's involved, it also talks in this drainage statement about the completion of North Lake Boulevard. How does that impact legal positive outfall and facilities that the county has in terms of inside of North Lake Boulevard?
Yes. So, as part of the North Lake Boulevard project, we construct a drainage system, and that handles the roadway drainage. But there would be an ability for this project to connect, to that roadway drainage system. There are additional requirements when connecting to county road drainage because our priority is to drain the roads and not the adjacent property. So they would have to have additional on-site storage if they were to connect to that road.
Thank you. I don't know if this question should be for staff or for the applicant, but there are several citizens who spoke earlier with regard to the tanks, the gas tanks or the fuel tanks being installed. I do understand that our code, and I believe the state statute, requires double tanks to prevent any leakage. Can someone explain to me how exactly that works? What happens if there's a leak through the first tank? And what happens if there's a leak through both tanks? Is there some kind of alarm that signal? How do we find out? Is it monitored? Is there some type of sensor that is installed with the tanks?
So I can cover it broadly. I don't know if staff is here. They're the experts. They've reviewed all this. So I would defer on any truly technical details. Look, you got up. I'm sorry. But the way these specific tanks are built and the way 7-Eleven, and those of you who've been here a while, you've seen me talk about 7-Eleven specifically a lot over the last 10 years. 7-Eleven has all of those measures. So if there's a leak, an alarm goes off, there are people on site, there are people off site. They have mobilization plans that have been reviewed and approved by the state of Florida, training plans that have been reviewed and approved by the state of Florida. But if there is any leak, it is an automatic alarm that goes off from tank 1 to tank 2. So there's multiple redundant measures to immediately respond in the event, in what frankly is an reasonably unlikely event. It's very, very unlikely that something like that could ever happen. But again, you've got your experts standing over there.
Thank you. As a follow-up to that, what's the life cycle of these tanks?
I think for the fuel tanks, they're probably 20 to 30 years is the warranty. A lot of the equipment, the piping and spill buckets. Patrick Willie, Palm Beach County Arm, for the record.
Thank you, Patrick.
And so Palm Beach County has been under contract with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection since the late 80s to do the inspection program. And we do the inspections about once every 2 years for all facilities in Palm Beach County. So if this were to go through, we would do an inspection during the installation, and then about every 2 years thereafter, we would be out to do a comprehensive inspection of the tanks, piping, and the monitoring systems.
Thank you, Patrick. The other thing is for
Hold on one second. Could you please say your name again and what department you are with the county?
Patrick Willie, Palm Beach County Environmental Resources Management.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell, sorry.
Thank you for that. And this is probably not for you, Patrick, but the other thing I have a question on is just back to staff in terms of our recommendation, or in terms of staff recommendation. In consideration of the recommendation, it took into account maybe I'm wrong, there's the idea that a commercial property has to be 10 acres. I know for an MUPD it has to be 5 acres. Was there any consideration with regard to the off-site drainage not being located on the parcel? So are the drainage, of course, would be either to the east or to into North Lake to figure that out. Was that considered in terms of the size? Because I know the area, the acreage neighborhood plan indicates that 10 acres is what should be there. Was that a consideration in staff's recommendation?
Well, I just wanted to clarify that, the site drainage itself for this parcel will be self-contained within the site itself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Scott. I don't think I have any further questions.
Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, I'm about to defend Don, so I'm going to make a joke at his expense. I'm going to be quicker than Don would be. I want to quickly cover high level a couple of things that had been said, the last of which was the fact that Mr. Herring is getting paid and he's not doing this pro bono. And this is where I'm going to defend him. And I've known him a long time, and so have many of you. He is a professional who is subject to ethical requirements, who gives his professional opinions, just like your staff does. And yes, people can agree and disagree, and that's okay. And I want to be clear about one other thing relative to this, because when I say that's okay, I'm not saying that we agree one way or the other with the objectors. It has been said that I said at Transmittal that I would not want to live next to a gas station, because what I said at Transmittal was that I understand that people are concerned, and if I didn't have all the information, I would be too. So yes, we may be getting paid, but we also do live in Palm Beach County, and yes, we do things in our own neighborhoods as well. But Mr. Herring's professional opinion is his professional opinion, and a disagreement with that, while okay, I'm just not going to let, and he probably wouldn't say anything, the personal attack come in that way. So I just want to reference that. Two other things, there were others that Commissioner Powell and Commissioner Weiss covered in response. There was a reference to urban sprawl. I pulled up the definition of urban sprawl in Florida statutes, which talks about a development pattern characterized by low-density automobile-dependent development with either a single use or multiple uses that are not functionally related. This is actually the opposite of urban sprawl. So what you have now is, as Mr. Herring showed, a 3-mile radius. It is all residential with one small commercial at the very south end. I think you were outside the 3-mile radius at the south end. And the nearest gas station on North Lake, not a mile and a half, approximately 2.5 to 3 miles away, under planning. And so yes, by the way, the property appraiser's information shows vacant or non-commercial. Some things that he mentioned were things, as he said, were not built, but were under process. So that's just some of that. So this is not an urban sprawl problem by the very definition of urban sprawl. This crafts an opportunity to capture what's there. If you're in the acreage, and I understand people don't want this, I'm not fighting that point, I'm talking a planning principle, and I'm talking about the law. If you're in the acreage and you need gas, that's particularly if you're at the north end of the acreage, you have to drive multiples of miles to get your gas. This captures some of that. Yes, they're orange. Orange is several miles south based on the graphic that Mr. Herring showed, and he did the 3-mile radii. And so yes, that some people may be fine with that, some people may not. But that's the point that was being made relative to Mr. Herring's points and the question of urban sprawl. Mr. Grafton suggested we should be updating neighborhood plans. I want to be clear, we have no right, no ability, and there's no process for us to update a neighborhood plan. They are not part of the comprehensive plan. As Commissioner Powell referenced, they should be updated, but there's no way we can apply to change, update, or otherwise do that. We are only bound and only allowed to talk about the comprehensive plan. And so while yes, there's some question relative to the consideration of the neighborhood plans, those neighborhood plans are a long time ago. Things have changed. The way people drive changed. The things have changed. This is not about just saying Avenir and Westlake exist. You heard a lot more from Mr. Herring than just Avenir and Westlake. They do affect things, right? Because there is a lot more going on in the neighborhood and in the area, and that does affect other things that happen. But that's not all that was said, right? So that's part of a piece of information, and there's a lot more that has been pointed out, and I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to go back through all of that with Mr. Herring. And the other issue was the contamination that's been discussed. I appreciate that. Again, 7-Eleven particularly goes above and beyond, but we have very stringent standards for environmental protection. Mr. Herring went through it. I think he had 3 slides talking about the various different elements of those different things. We can bring those back up if you have more detailed questions. But again, this has been designed and redesigned. This has been shrunk. We will agree to a condition of approval, not just on the trip cap, but on a limited use. And it would be, no more than one of the 3 uses I think that were mentioned. That Lisa's going to be smarter at me about saying it, so I'm going to let her figure that out because she drafts conditions for a living. I just edit them. Usually not taken, but I try. But that's where we're at. And so yes, we understand the change comes and people are concerned, and some people moved and said, I want to not have anything different. This does, as Mr. Herring has pointed out in detail, meet the requirements of the plan. It meets the requirements of the code for a variety of reasons, and we do ask that you approve this today, both items. Thank you.
Quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Hours of operation?
I'm sorry?
Hours of operation.
Limited to 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
6 a.m. to 11 p.m. This is one that we have not requested a 24-hour operation.
Thank you.
That's the minimum code, by the way.
I just wanted it out there. Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a couple of questions, and I'm not a planner. I know we have one on our board now that can maybe help with some of this, but I do come from a rural area in South Carolina where I grew up, and I know that we have a number of areas where it's nothing but housing. It's not necessarily farm or agriculture, but it's just housing. And the one thing that does sort of pop up along the way is a gas station, because that is, every one of those homes has a car. It's not a destination. Like, people who don't live there aren't like, oh, I'm going to go to that gas station way over there. That's my convenient route, and those are the gas stations that I hit. So I'm just wondering, in the world of planning, where does a gas station fit in with? I understand it's a high trip generator, but is there a difference when you're speaking planning language and something that would be a destination versus something that is a neighborhood benefit? And I'm asking because, it seems like there is a difference. If it's something that, hey, what do you want to do tonight? Let's go to that place. It's not a gas station. That's something that you hit on your way home or on your way out. So in the world of planning, does this fit in with something that makes a neighborhood benefit use?
In the realm of planning and zoning, because this is like a general concept, I know myself, coming from Connecticut, there are small gas stations surrounded by houses, but often those houses are on larger lots than the 1.25 acre lot. And typically and I'm thinking of the one in Micanopy that I just had lunch at 2 weekends ago, and that's surrounded by houses. So, it's not unheard of to have a gas station in truly rural areas just there with, maybe some food. In a planning arena and a zoning arena, and it is not unheard of.
Do we account for that or is that accounted for in the neighborhood plan which granted, pushing 20 years ago, but, just as far as when we're looking at rural and ex-urban, where do these things fit in?
The neighborhood plan wanted 10 acres because typically our suburban-esque shopping centers have a gas station on the hard corner, and the 10 acres allows the wrapping around that property. If you could think of the corner of Lake Worth Road and 441, there's a gas station on the hard corner, and then there's a retail strip plaza around it, and that adds like a transition from your high activity use to a moderate trip generating use to the residential. And I guess that was the vision at the time when they did in the mid 90s when we were doing neighborhood plans and we did the acreage neighborhood plan, that was part of the concept that we are going to, have enough land area for the drainage and the circulation. Also, the time that the acreage neighborhood plan was done, there was something called the Grove Market. That was a 9.9 acre parcel, which is now, I think, Aldi's in Westlake, but at the time, it was in the middle of Callery Judge Groves, and it was a it was Winn-Dixie at the time, and that had gas sales. And it was, again, wrapped around by a non-residential development. So, I guess in this particular instance, if they did have a 10 acres, it would have a larger radius and impact on surrounding properties.
Is there consideration for location, whether, if it's mid-block or corners preferred? Are any of those part of this plan as well?
Well, this, and sorry to speak for planning, but the comprehensive plan commercial location criteria has been revised on multiple occasions over the years. At one point, this intersection didn't qualify for commercial when it was at a T, what's called a T intersection, because the road kind of ends. Bryce might have more of the background on me on when that changed over the years. But it does meet the location requirements to be able to ask for commercial low. That's something that it does check the box. And when we put the policies in the plan, we didn't put a 10-acre minimum in there. We did say it just qualifies to ask, and then brings us to where we are today. And anything you want to add, Bryce, on the commercial location policies?
I don't recall off the top of my head on the T versus, I think it was only allowed at intersections where the roadways crossed a grade and not like a T intersection, but that this intersection is okay now, the language is changed. But prior to 2008, this intersection didn't even qualify for someone to request commercial. It wasn't until some changes in the comp plan that put several intersections on the map where properties would be able to qualify. So really, it's only been since 2008 where somebody could come in and ask for commercial on one of the corners, and really it's only the southeast or the northeast corners here, not the west corner, because the west, which is not a corner, doesn't have frontage on both an arterial and a collector or two arterials.
All right,
Does that help? Sort of? Clear as mud?
Clear.
I'm sorry, I struggle with this just because I know my own experience hitting the gas station. It is strictly convenience on my way here most times, or on my way home because I couldn't get out in the morning. I'm struggling with this. Thank you.
Commissioner Powell.
Thank you. Bryce, Mr. Van Horn, during transmittal, staff recommended denial. And that was also recommended denial through, I believe, planning, through planning board, right? The question I have is, with the amendments, barring this is going concurrently with the site plan, or if the applicant had adjusted and made concessions, including the condition of minimizing the number of trips prior to the previous, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if there were conditions made prior to today, would staff, and maybe this is not something you would know, was that taken into consideration during the original staff analysis and original recommendation by staff?
That's hard to speculate, but right. I think if the applicant had proposed their future land use amendment in that application, maybe with the limitation, maybe our recommendation would have been different. It's very difficult to go back in time and
Right.
and tell, but they didn't. That's not what they proposed.
Right, and I get it. So we're looking at what's in front of us today, and I know that's a very difficult question because you can't go back and review what wasn't there at the time. And even now, what we have in front of us is not what was proposed or originally proposed. So the challenge for me is I know that there's a recommendation by staff, and I know there's been some concessions made by the applicant. In addition to that, from a professional standpoint, I do respect the concessions that have been made. I do also understand the point of the residents who live in that particular area. It's just challenging to look at this because of every variable that goes into this particular project. And I think it's, on its face, is probably a good project. It does, have some concerns. Staff has raised, of course, and I know the residents have raised. I'm inclined to, of course, originally I opposed the project based on what was presented at the time, and I'm inclined to do so again. However, I'm challenged by the reliance on the area plan, the acreage neighborhood plan, and the Western North Lake plan, as well as some of the concessions that have been made. But I'm able to weigh both applications separately, both the application for the future land use amendment and the application that moves forward with the site plan. With that being said, I will yield to my colleagues, but I'm not going to make the motion. I'll let the district commissioner make that. But I think those are some things that we have considered, should consider, and thank you to staff for really working on this project. Thank you for the residents who've come out and voiced your concerns, as well as the applicant for working with staff to make concessions.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. In looking at this, and looking at that location, and understanding there is no way to get to 10 acres in that configuration, but understanding where the idea of having that 10 acres to create that buffer, well, you've got that buffer created in a way based on the fact that we've got that lake there now. And it limits that there can't be any really, there's no, unless somebody's going to go fishing there, or I don't know if that's allowed or not, but that's really about, or they can walk around it, I assume, if it's not fenced off. But it's not going to draw any people to it, which I think was originally, when I understood what you said, Lisa, was that the idea was to have take the land up so you didn't have too much intensity. Understanding also from Bryce about, you were looking at it based on any possibility, and I think, and that's what you base your recommendation on. So it makes it difficult for us. Because that's what's in front of us, and now, one is the limitation on the trip count, but I also, if I heard correctly, from the applicant, that they're also agreeable to a condition that there's only one, this use, and if they were to change it, they would have to come back through. But they can only have one of these, I think, I think you could only one high trip generating use. And I agree with my colleague, Commissioner Woodward. I don't think gas stations in and of themselves, getting fuel is something people go to do out of
Non-necessity.
Just to go do it. Except in the case, I think, in preparation of a hurricane where people are all topping off their tanks. But other than that, and I'm not so certain. I know there's a lot of controversy about how we power our vehicles in the future, but I don't see the future of vehicles being powered by fossil fuels because there's a finite supply. I mean, at some point, we can't keep doing. I mean, we're not going to be able to power vehicles this way. And people are going to, I think people will be getting vehicles that, and if they're electric, they'll be able to refuel them at their homes. And I think the whole need. The convenience store piece, I guess, can be a draw if you're, but I don't see people coming in from out of the area to go to a convenience store either. I do believe they're neighborhood serving. You're going to be in that area if you're going to go there. You'll already be there. It's not going to be a draw. So it's very difficult because I also hear the neighbors, and I'm also very concerned about them being on well water and the potential for any kind of impact to that. So this is a challenging case, but I certainly believe that that corner does qualify and should be a commercial low. And I know we heard from a resident who suggested maybe a single-family home. I just don't see at that busy intersection somebody wanting to build a single-family home there. And that's what it is that's the current land use. That's currently what's allowed there. So it has to change to something. Expecting a property owner to build a home there it's no longer reasonable. So I am conflicted, and I'm waiting to hear what the rest of my colleagues have to say.
Commissioner Sachs.
Thank you, Mayor. This has really been a great discussion, and I've enjoyed all the work that the applicant has done. You've really done a noble job, and as well as our staff. But I think I'm not a planner. I'm just a commissioner. Government shouldn't tell people what they should have in their neighborhood unless it's a fire station or law enforcement. If the people don't want something, I think that goes very highly towards checking the box. And it appears to me that the folks who live in this area don't want it. I love 7-Elevens, but if they don't want a 7-Eleven, it's not up to us to tell them that they must have a 7-Eleven in their neighborhood. It's up to us as government to tell people if they need a school or if they need a fire station. But I think this conversation is really about what the rights of people have. And we created this neighborhood. I wasn't here, but I guess the Board of County Commissioners created it. And we should certainly honor the rights of the people who now populate the area that we created. So that's where I'm at on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. No. I grew up in a very small community in Connecticut, like Lisa, and on acres of one or more. And there was a neighborhood gas station that you had to pass going in and pass coming out. And then there was also a little tiny shopping center where we got the best meat on the planet. Sorry for all those vegetarians or vegans in the room. I'm a carnivore, will always be. And also it had a hair salon, and it had services, and it had a restaurant, and it was used by the neighborhood. It wasn't used by folks that were coming from someplace else. So it was a convenience, a local convenience for the neighborhood. And not sure, I'm trying to go back in my mind about how closer the next gas station was, but it was inconvenient as opposed to convenient. So while the acreage neighborhood plan is a little bit dated, I believe that with the growth that we've had in the area and the growth of the acreage, which someone please tell me what the population of the acreage is these days.
48,000.
Okay, 40 some odd thousand. I don't believe that having a gas station and a convenience store on this corner is detrimental to the community. With that, I have one more light on, and that would be Vice Mayor Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, staff, for all the information. And thank you, residents, for coming out. I want to clarify a few things. First off, there's been a lot of information going out. I view my role, number one, as representing residents in the acreage. Always have, always will. Not everyone agrees on what is appropriate and what is not. To address the comment about driving 5 miles, there are certain things people might not want to drive 5 miles for. I don't know if that is I didn't know if it was a gas station. I don't know if it's a restaurant. I didn't know if it was a medical facility. So I sent out a poll, and that poll didn't require an address. Somebody took that poll and sent it to a bunch of more people, and those addresses were not in our area, which is why I sent out a second poll requiring an address. I want to make sure that the people who are having a voice in what we're voting on today live in the area and are affected by this decision. That was the entire reason. There was no other reason. Also, some residents do live closer to services, some don't. I wanted to see who was around this particular area, who wanted it and who didn't. There was a overwhelming majority of people that said no. I am not here to tell them what they want or don't want. I'm here to collect information and fight for them and vote accordingly. There were people, there wasn't a zero on the yes. There were people in the area, over 20, that wanted this. But again, there was a lot more that did not. So again, it is my job to represent them and what they want. So with that being said, ultimately, whether it's appropriate and logical for our area, and regardless of what anyone says, it's what the residents want. They don't want this. And so I am not supporting this today. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter.
Thank you. So we're now at that juncture where we either need a motion to approve or a motion to deny.
If I may, if the board did want to add a condition of approval to the future land use amendment, this condition would work to ensure that those uses that were removed between transmittal and adoption from the site plan couldn't come back. It would continue the cap on trips and to allow no more than one of the following uses. So it could have either the convenience store and gas sales or a car wash or a restaurant with drive-through. I will say that. And I will say if this is proposed and we shared it with the applicant and this is up to the board if the board were to approve it. The second thing, if the comp plan amendment is denied, it can't come back for 2 years. So just want to point that out because the comp plan requires, unless something has changed, Travis, it's still 2 years. So just so you know.
And we agree to that. We will agree to that language.
So the language would be?
On the screen, the development of the subject site under the CL future land use designation shall not exceed a total of 1,426 daily trips and shall not include more than one of the following uses. That was the condition that was talked about when we were talking about potential uses. This would ensure that only one of those that were allowed. The site plan right now proposes a convenience store with gas sales, medical office, and retail, but this would allow flexibility for the medical office to be a professional office or the retail instead to be a restaurant kind of thing, but would still have some level of limiting the uses.
But if there's a convenience store with gas and fuel sales, that would be the one. There would not be a car wash, and nor would there be a restaurant with drive-through.
Right, unless they came through the zoning process later, and they wanted to say, "Oh, we changed our mind. We don't want a gas station." Then they could have the restaurant with drive-through. But it wouldn't, this condition would stop them from applying for, in the future, adding in a restaurant with drive-through, adding in the car wash that they just took off between Transmittal. So that's the concept behind it.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I had, are there any other uses of commercial low that we should be concerned about?
There's a lot of uses that are shown on this slide. Vehicle sales and rental, self-storage. Typically, they need a lot more square footage. A financial institution, no one does those really freestanding anymore. Vehicle sales and repair potentially could be a concern. But most of the other uses aren't as, I think, well, other than cocktail lounge, which is kind of a bar. Other than that, this is all of the uses for the board to consider if you wanted to not limit, if you wanted to not allow any of those uses, that's the list right there of everything that could come back.
Any other questions, Commissioner Weiss?
No, I'm just,
Making notes?
I'm trying to, I want to make some notes. It's probably easier to read it off this screen, too.
Vice Mayor Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Also, I would like to state publicly to the ALA and Mr. Morgan, I think there is room, as we've heard today, with uses in our area to potentially update the acreage neighborhood plan, and that is done through the county. And if you are so willing, I would love to get with the residents, get with the association, and try to see what uses you feel would be appropriate. I did and was privy to the poll you sent out, and it looked like people weren't just opposed to anything, but there were some more favorable than others. So I think opening a dialect for those conversations could be very useful. Thank you.
Commissioner Sachs.
Is it possible, staff, that after the district commissioner meets with her constituents, that we could make a decision as to how this is going to end and if there would be an opportunity for another development there?
That would require a postponement or denial. We can't do anything.
Let's hear from the attorney.
It would have to be a postponement, and I would think at this point it would have to be agreed to by, are we running up against the 180 day?
Oh, sure. For the zoning application, it has to be heard within 180 days of the application being complete, unless the applicant agrees to a postponement. And I think the other issue is revisiting the neighborhood plan. Wouldn't that require?
That's going to take some time, I would imagine, and probably
require a comprehensive plan amendment?
Well, okay, the thing with the neighborhood plan, I was one of the authors of the Loxahatchee Groves neighborhood plan. And to do a neighborhood plan is ginormous undertaking. To do some kind of analysis of this intersection, considering that there is an applicant for a text amendment right across the street from this one who's proposing to amend the comp plan. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily have to do a full-blown neighborhood plan update with the amount of level, but I mean, it could warrant having a dialogue at this intersection, considering that what does Mo call it, a hot right? And on the, considering this particular corridor, there could be a narrowly focused discussion with the district commissioner and the interested parties in this kind of vicinity that wouldn't take the acreage neighborhood plan, I think, took 3 years, but that was before computers kind of thing. So, there could be a postponement. If it falls in within Stephanie's deadline.
So we would be running up against the 180-day requirement for adoption with the comp plan to meet Florida statutes, but that's kind of an easy fix. As long as the applicant agrees, we would send a letter to the state letting them know that the deadline's being extended, and we would also notify anyone who provided comment related to the project.
I'd leave that up to the district commissioner. I'll defer to her in terms of how she wants this scheduled.
Regardless of this vote today, I want to work on updating our acreage neighborhood plan with the residents. But I think I've stated how I feel about this as of today's meeting.
So I guess we just need a motion.
So the 180-day issue on the zoning application is an easy question legally. The comp plan is a little less so because what is now the Department of Commerce, a year or so ago when they were still DEO, rejected a comprehensive plan amendment in Miami-Dade County on the 180 days, even though there was apparently some agreement with the landowners. So we would have some concern about that timing. I don't know it all off the top of my head. I looked at it when it happened, and I don't remember it in detail. But I'm a little concerned that if DEO didn't accept it, it would be deemed denied and we'd be sitting here for 2 years. If with the conditions of approval with the limitations, which resolves the comp plan issues, we could at least get that done, then I would be less concerned about the extension on the zoning, if that makes sense.
And I'm sorry, Stephanie, what did, and Brian, what was the 180 limit right now?
So between transmittal and adoption, you've got a limited period. Is it transmittal and adoption, right? There we go. So
It's when we receive comments from the state, and that date is September 8th or 9th is that 180 days. So we are very close.
We can't even get a month?
Well, we can request an extension through the state. Yes, for another 180 days.
I hear that. I'm concerned that that didn't happen and someone lost and it was deemed denied. And because that would put us off for 2 years, that's a risk we unfortunately can't take, right? Because had I never seen that letter from DEO, I might be standing here differently, but it causes me too much concern that I have a 2-year stop in that circumstance. It's too big of a risk at that point. Again, the zoning is a different point. We could talk but if we want to separate 12 and 13, I can't agree to the extension if we're that close and we don't know what DEO is going to do. Or, sorry, Commerce is going to do.
Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. Mr. Seymour,
Yes, sir.
would you have any objection to eliminating the use of vehicle repair on that site, cocktail lounge, and vehicle sales and rentals?
No objection at all.
No, but it's an allowed use in commercial law. So I'm trying to get to that list.
They would be added to the list that Lisa identified in the condition.
Could you put that list back up on our screens, please?
And I'm sorry, vehicle repair?
Vehicle sales and vehicle repair. And then cocktail lounge.
Can't spell.
And I think the specific use for the vehicle repair is repair and maintenance?
Okay, I'm sorry? Yes, good. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mayor?
Commissioner Weiss, do you have any more questions?
Not right now.
Commissioner Flores and then Commissioner Powell.
Okay, Stephanie made a point. I'm sorry, Commissioner Flores. Stephanie just made a point about the condition. Were you asking to prohibit it or to say it's only allowed as one of the only one at a times?
Prohibit it.
Yeah, so I think it would need, so it would be rewritten a little. I misunderstood it too. So it would, restaurant drive-through, the following uses, something that are prohibited.
Thank you.
Like that?
Sorry. Mr. Stone? I have a resident who has a point of order. Such a thing?
The point of order is for the
Just
members
us.
of the board.
Point of inquiry, not point of order.
Please sit down, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores.
Brian, if you get denied, you have to wait 2 years.
Yes, sir.
Would you not rather postpone than get a denial?
So if I postpone, I think I get a denial anyway by DEO because I've only got a week before the time frame Stephanie mentioned lapse, and I can't. And so if we need to postpone the zoning to talk about the details, because I think to the mayor's point, it was the uses, not the commercial low land use, particularly with these restrictions that sort of changed the dynamic. So that's why we could put those restrictions. I think I can extend the zoning, and that statutorily, I say yes, you say yes, and it's done. The DEO things requires them, and that's where my concern comes.
Okay. I do want to, sir, the guy from
the resident.
What was your comment? Your point of? Come to the mic, please. Yeah, just stay your name and address for the record, and just.
James Shackelford, FS 119 for the address. I'm within the immediate vicinity of it. I just had an understanding that if the land use gets changed at this location, that the T, all of it is then changed in that nature. So all commercial low would then be accessible at that end. And just for staff, was there ever I guess, because we made mention about the driving and the distances that we've had, the Orange and Seminole Pratt, was that not designated as the commercial low for that vicinity and that area specifically? I'm just trying to get clarification with what's been discussed.
Would you mind answering that real quick?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The questions about the other sites?
The sites at the T, so if this were to move forward with the land use adjustment, if that would then expose the other sites so that the east and the north side to then also have that change.
Okay.
And if there was any ever discussion, because I've lived in Loxahatchee for 25 years, it's just a matter of understanding with staffing if the commercial low was ever truly designated as being only the commercial low at Orange and Seminole Pratt, which is what we currently have. And I've just heard some of the commissioners make mention about that traversing and driving that some distance for your local.
Okay, if Stephanie can come to the mic. And Stephanie, two things. One, this is the only corner right now that qualifies for commercial low, is that correct?
The north and south sides, yes.
Oh,
West,
okay.
yeah.
So the north and south sides currently qualify in the comp plan to ask for commercial low. If this is approved, it won't change the fact that the property owner across from Seminole Pratt Whitney has to do a private text amendment, or he's currently doing a private text amendment. So, you know, that comp plan change won't occur. But something else to think about, so the options for the board could include today, the applicant is not interested in postponement, but theoretically, a second transmittal to the state would alleviate the 180 limit, and then the board could also decide, if it's denied today, to waive the 2-year, right, Stephanie?
Yeah, the board could waive the 2-year
Prohibition.
pause of application process, and that has happened before. Hunter's Crossing was denied, came back requesting kind of reconsideration of the 2-year pause.
So, Brian, I'm looking at the statute for the
On DEO?
yeah, on the change, on the delay of the postponement of the comp plan item. And the way I'm reading it is, it says, so if the local government fails within 180 days after receipt of agency comments to hold the second public hearing and to adopt the comprehensive plan amendments, the amendments are deemed withdrawn unless extended by agreement with notice to the state land planning agency and any affected person. So it doesn't seem like the state land planning agency has any discretion as long as we agree to the 180 days.
I agree with that, except that they didn't, and there was a lawsuit pending in Miami-Dade County. That's my only concern, is that I happen to know that there was another circumstance where that had happened, which is a problem.
Well, we've done it in the past. I don't think we've ever had any issue with it before, so.
I can appreciate that. Assuming that, what are we talking about? Because we can't do, I think Lisa made the point, we can't do an update to the neighborhood plan. We can't make a bunch of change on that. We've agreed to restrictions and limitations. So
Okay.
what would we be?
I'm taking back my time, if I may. I am with the district commissioner on this. I am with Commissioner Sachs on this. And I think that if we're going to do something here, I was one of the ones that voted to transmit this in the first place. I can't wholeheartedly do that right now when you have a whole association and a whole community who is not a part of this. And we're not making one small change. We're making a lot of changes. So I am of the mindset that the district commissioner meets with this group and then they proceed forward on what they want in this property. And if we can get there in 180 days to 365 days, so be it. But where I'm at right now, I am not going to proceed forward.
Darren, you said withdrawn or denied? You read that again?
Okay. So if the local government fails within 180 days after receipt of agency comments to hold the second public hearing and to adopt the comprehensive plan amendment, the amendments are deemed withdrawn unless extended by agreement with notice to the state land planning agency. So it would be withdrawn as opposed to denied. So you would, the two-year limitation wouldn't apply. But we're going to have an agreement. We're going to notify the state. I guess we've got to notify affected, the people that provided comments. So.
Okay. I got lights on.
Okay, then we can agree to that. We'll agree to the extension. We'll have to re-advertise and anything else because we don't have a time certain, but I'll work with staff to get something to the state.
All right, so I have 3 more lights on, which would be Commissioner Powell, then Commissioner Sachs, then Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is a very detailed plan and a very detailed proposal. With that being said, that's why I asked some questions to Mr. Van Horn earlier with regard to staff recommendation. Mr. Van Horn, if this were to be pushed and reevaluated, the team works with the district commissioner as well as the residents. Does that bring about an opportunity to re-look at this to potentially get to a point where staff is neutral, or has that time passed because there's been changes? And if staff has analyzed this and staff still believes that it doesn't meet all of the qualifications to move forward, is that something that could change or not? I just want to have a full and clear understanding as we prepare to move forward.
I think this is new territory for me.
Sorry. And maybe that's not a question you can answer right now.
I will add, there was an application when I was in planning. It was called REACH. It was a property owner wanted to propose commercial law office across the street from the Orange and Pratt Plaza. And we had gone to the board with the transmittal, the initiation, and we said, hey, we can't just look at this property owner in a vacuum. We should look at the strip. So we developed policy language with that allowed, and of course nobody's come in, but allowed property owners that were fronting Seminole Pratt across the street from the Publix to be able to apply for commercial law office as well. So there's potential if the board postponed for a period of time, that there is potential for a new staff report and a new analysis. This is uncharted territory, as Bryce said. We, in the past, in my days of planning, we published transmittal, we would go forward with adoption, and there were sometimes changes to the staff report. In this particular instance, if it had a 6-month postponement and kind of a revisit of the staff report considering other things, there's potentially, I can't speak for planning, but it's uncharted territory, but there have been instances in the past where changes resulted in changes.
Mayor,
I don't know that
if
anyone
I may, and also if it's significantly changed, it would require us to go back to Planning Commission, which could potentially change the recommendation by our staff. So I imagine that there is a world where that exists.
Thank you for that.
Commissioner Sachs.
Well, it seems to me that we have project for y'all to do. And I hope that we can help you do it. But I think that this is an item that's been listed on our agenda, and I'm ready to deny or approve at this time. But in the meantime, I would like to see our good applicant work with staff as well as anybody else here. We have some other issues on the agenda that may have some policy changes. So this is a hearty discussion, but I'm ready to second whatever the district commissioner says and move forward. But as far as policy changes and what opportunities this organization in the acreage has, I think is something we need to work on as county. And but I'm not prepared right now to discuss it. I think I'd like to hear what you all have to study on this, get back to us. But at this point, we've got an item on the agenda. It's either up or down, and we can do policy changes later after you've studied it sufficiently to advise us. So I'm ready to decide on this. Mayor, it's up to you. But we've got an agenda. It's up or down. Let's move forward.
Actually, there's other options, and I'm going to call on Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. I'm following up on, and that's I wanted to follow up on Commissioner Powell's comment. So I would think that this warrants that our planning staff look at this based on what the applicant has agreed to and the language as to the conditions, because I know that was, as we had the earlier conversation with Mr. Van Horn, it was the determination was made based on the original design for what they were going to do with that site. And so I would like to have this come back and have you review that based upon those limitations that have been that we've discussed today and have been agreed upon by the applicant. And with that, I would like to make a motion to postpone this. I think is that what we were saying? We can do a postponement?
Yes, that's exactly what the discussion has been, is to postpone.
Yeah, it would
give
be
the
a
opportunity.
We would
staff
postpone with the applicant's
applicant.
agreement.
With the applicant's agreement, this would be a postponement, and we would contact the state and verify this was all done properly.
Mayor, I want to make a substitute motion to deny it.
Okay.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion to postpone it?
And it was seconded by Commissioner Sachs.
So if you have the substitute motion, would you be willing to waive the 2 years, or do we have to wait 2 years before we can ever ask for the commercial low again?
I would be willing to waive the 2 years, and that gives us time to work with the residents.
We would still prefer the postponement, but it is your will. So thank you for at least that.
I made a substitute motion to postpone.
I'll second.
May I?
And
I just want to make it clear, if it is postponed, the applicant, because there's two different 180-day time periods here, it gets confusing. The applicant is agreeing for the zoning to basically postpone it indefinitely, because otherwise...
That is correct.
Okay.
okay. Commissioner Sachs?
I have a question. If somebody wants to postpone it, don't we need a vote by the board to allow them to postpone it?
That's the motion.
Is that correct?
That's
Okay, so we have, I know everybody, I'm looking at the attorney. So at this point, the board has to either deny it, approve it, or postpone it by a majority vote. Mr. Attorney?
Yes, those are your options. At this point, I believe there was a motion, a substitute motion, and now a substitute motion, which is currently to postpone.
Okay, could I have the clerk tell us what those motions are before we vote? We have one motion to deny. One motion, is that correct?
Sure. There was the first motion was to postpone. The substitute motion was to deny. The substitute motion, which is the current motion, is to postpone. That's what's in effect
So we
right
have
now.
two motions to postpone.
But the motion on the floor.
I cannot hear anybody. I want to hear
The
the
motion
attorney.
on the floor is to postpone. It is the second substitute motion, which makes it the final substitute motion. So the motion on the floor at this point in time is to postpone. Am I correct, Mr. Attorney?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Sachs, your light is on. Commissioner Powell, your light is on. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If the motion to postpone fails, then what is the next process?
A new motion.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome. So the motion on the floor at this point in time, which is the final motion, is to postpone. So I have a motion to postpone.
Can I just clarify that the motion itself is to postpone it indefinitely until such time as they're ready? Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So there was a motion and a second, I believe, right? Commissioner Weiss. Did you want a roll call?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're going to have a roll call vote on postponement.
Sorry, I apologize.
Okay. On the motion to postpone, Commissioner Flores. I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please? No. Commissioner Powell. No. Commissioner Sachs.
No.
Commissioner Weiss.
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward.
Yes?
Vice Mayor Baxter.
No.
And Mayor Marino.
Yes.
Okay.
The motion to postpone failed, so now we need a new motion.
I'll make the motion to deny without the 2-year time frame.
So we have a motion on the floor to deny, but without the penalty of a 2-year return. So I have a motion from Commissioner Baxter, a second from Commissioner Flores.
Third from Commissioners.
Do you still want a roll call vote?
Sure.
Okay, go for the roll call, please.
Commissioner Powell. Yes. Commissioner Sachs.
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss.
No.
Commissioner Woodward.
No.
I'm sorry, could you?
No.
Commissioner Flores.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baxter.
Yes.
Mayor Marino.
No. That motion to, the motion to deny carried 4-3. Thank you all. Thank you, residents, for being here.
I think we need a separate motion on the, did that cover both applications? I just want clarity for a record, so we don't have something hanging out.
The denial of 12 means?
That there's 13
There
is
is
not.
none.
There, 13 is basically, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear, so I just wanted to make everything, I think I understood that, but thank you for clarifying. I appreciate the time today, and hopefully we'll be able to come back to you with something soon.
Thank you all. It is 12:37. I had sent out a note that we were going to take a lunch break at 12:30. So we are going to take a lunch break now. We will come back at 2. At that point in time, we will hear the rest of the items. Well, if it's an hour and 20 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
We'll be back at 2. Thank you.